Nathan Cole's shovel struck something soft in the frozen Colorado earth, a hand, pale and desperate, clawing through the dirt. The millionaire he'd just saved from a shallow grave gripped his wrist with shocking strength, her whispered words shattering everything he believed about his wife's death. Sarah was murdered because of me. Before we dive into this heart-stopping tale of betrayal and buried secrets, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. The autumn wind carried the scent of decay through the Colorado wilderness, rustling the golden aspens that stood like silent witnesses to Nathan Cole's desperate excavation. His worn hiking boots slipped on the loose soil as he dug frantically, dirt flying in wild arcs behind him. What had started as a simple camping trip with his 8-year-old daughter Lily had transformed into something unthinkable when her small voice had called out, "Daddy, why is the ground moving over there?" Nathan's calloused hands, the hands of a carpenter who'd built a life from grief and sawdust, trembled as they uncovered fabric, expensive silk torn and stained with earth. Then came the fingers, manicured despite the dirt caked beneath the nails, reaching upward with the last reserves of strength. "Oh God," Nathan breathed, dropping to his knees and digging with renewed fury. "Hold on!" Just hold on. The woman's face emerged like a ghost from the earth, angular cheekbones streaked with mud, silver hair that had once been perfectly styled now matted against her skull. But her eyes, those steel gray eyes burned with a fierce will to survive that made Nathan's heart pound even harder. He grabbed her shoulders and pulled, his muscles straining against the weight of the earth that tried to reclaim her. She gasped as she broke free, a raw, primal sound that echoed through the trees. Nathan caught her as she collapsed forward, her body shaking violently. She was wearing what had once been a designer suit, probably worth more than Nathan made in 3 months, now reduced to muddy tatters. A diamond necklace still glinted at her throat, catching the late afternoon sun filtering through the canopy. "Lily, get the water from my pack," Nathan shouted to his daughter, who stood frozen 20 feet away, her Hello Kitty backpack hanging off one small shoulder. "Daddy, is she okay?" Lily's voice quavered, but she obeyed, her little legs carrying her quickly to their campsite. The woman's breathing was ragged, each inhale a battle. Nathan supported her head, brushing dirt from her face with gentle sweeps of his thumb. "You're safe now," he said, though he had no idea if that was true. "What's your name?" "Who did this to you?" She tried to speak but only managed a hoarse croak. Lily returned with the water bottle and Nathan helped the woman take small sips. The liquid seemed to revive her slightly, color returning to her ash-pale cheeks. "Vivian," she finally managed, her voice like gravel. "Vivian Sterling." Nathan's breath caught. He knew that name, everyone in Colorado did. Vivian Sterling was a real estate mogul who'd developed half of Denver's skyline. Her face graced magazine covers and charity galas, and someone had tried to bury her alive. "We need to get you to a hospital," Nathan said, already calculating the fastest route back to civilization. "Lily, can you—" Vivian's hand shot out with surprising strength, gripping Nathan's wrist. Her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made him freeze. "Nathan Cole," she whispered, and ice flooded his veins. How did she know his name? "How do you—" "Your wife," Vivian interrupted, her voice gaining strength with urgency. "Sarah Cole, elementary school teacher, died in a car accident 3 years ago on Highway 285. Nathan's world tilted. Lily made a small sound behind him. She rarely heard her mother's name spoken aloud. "What are you talking about?" His voice came out harder than he intended. Vivian's grip tightened, her nails digging into his skin. "It wasn't an accident, Nathan. Your wife was murdered. And I'm the reason why." The forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind stopped, leaving only the sound of Nathan's thundering heartbeat. Lily stepped closer, her small hand finding her father's shoulder. "You're in shock," Nathan said, though his voice shook. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." Vivian struggled to sit up, and Nathan found himself helping her despite the chaos in his mind. "Sarah came to me 3 years ago. She'd discovered something about my company's finances. She was tutoring the daughter of one of my accountants, and she accidentally saw documents she shouldn't have. Nathan's mouth went dry. Sarah had mentioned taking on extra tutoring work that summer, saving for Lily's college fund, she'd said. Always thinking ahead, always planning for a future she'd never see. She tried to do the right thing, Vivian continued, her voice stronger now, edged with old guilt. She came to me directly instead of going to the authorities. She thought I didn't know about the money laundering, thought she was helping me. A bitter laugh escaped her cracked lips. She was right, I didn't know. But the moment I started investigating, the moment I asked questions, we both became problems that needed to be solved. No. Nathan stood abruptly, pulling Lily against him. No, Sarah died when her brakes failed. The police found what they were meant to find. Vivian's eyes held a pain that seemed to echo Nathan's own. Professional killers don't leave evidence, but I know because the same man who ordered her death just tried to bury me alive. Marcus Hale. The name hung in the air like a curse. Marcus Hale, another titan of Colorado business, a man whose face adorned hospital wings and university buildings, a man who'd sent flowers to Sarah's funeral. Daddy? Lily's voice was small, confused. What's she saying about Mommy? Nathan's protective instincts warred with a desperate need for answers. He knelt beside his daughter, keeping one eye on Vivian. It's okay, sweetheart. The lady is confused. She's been through something scary, but Vivian shook her head slowly. I've carried this guilt for 3 years, Mr. Cole. I tried to protect Sarah once I knew what she'd stumbled into, but I was too late. Marcus had already decided she was a threat. The brake line! Stop! Nathan's voice cracked like a whip. Not in front of my daughter. Vivian's gaze softened as she looked at Lily, really looked at her for the first time. You have your mother's eyes, she said gently. She was brave, you know. Braver than I was. Lily pressed closer to Nathan, but her natural curiosity won out. You knew my mommy? Only briefly, Vivian replied, but she made an impression. She wanted to make the world better, safer for you. Nathan's mind raced, memories flooding back unbidden. Sarah's excitement about the tutoring job, how it had soured suddenly. She'd been distracted those last few weeks, checking her phone constantly, looking over her shoulder. He'd thought she was planning a surprise for his birthday. God, he'd been so blind. A branch cracked in the distance, sharp as a gunshot. All three of them tensed, heads turning toward the sound. The forest had darkened while they'd been talking, shadows stretching long and ominous between the trees. We need to move, Vivian said urgently, struggling to her feet. Nathan automatically steadied her, his mind still reeling. They'll come back to make sure the job is finished. They always do. Who? Who's they? Nathan demanded, though part of him already knew the answer would upend everything. Marcus has a whole network, dirty cops, hired killers, people in every institution you'd turn to for help. Vivian winced as she put weight on her left ankle. I've been gathering evidence for months, getting close to proving everything. That's why he decided I needed to disappear. Then we're going to the FBI, Nathan said firmly, scooping Lily up despite her protest that she was too big to be carried. This is beyond... The Denver FBI field office has at least 2 agents on Marcus's payroll, Vivian interrupted. I know because I've seen the payment records. The local police, the state troopers, he has people everywhere. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was paranoid, but something in her eyes stopped him. This wasn't the rambling of a traumatized victim. This was a woman who'd survived in the cutthroat world of high-stakes real estate, who'd built an empire from nothing. She knew exactly what she was saying. Another branch cracked, closer this time. Then another. Daddy, someone's coming, Lily whispered, her arms tightening around his neck. Nathan's combat instincts from his army days kicked in, dormant reflexes suddenly sharp. The pattern of movement was wrong for animals, too deliberate, too coordinated. We're leaving. Now. He half-carried, half-dragged Vivian toward where they'd parked the truck, Lily clinging to his other side. The 100 yards felt like a mile. Every shadow a potential threat, every sound a warning. Vivian's breathing grew labored, but she didn't complain, her jaw set with determination. They'd almost reached the trail when a figure stepped out from behind a massive pine, blocking their path. The man was dressed in dark tactical gear, the kind Nathan recognized from his military service. Professional, expensive, lethal. His face was obscured by the gathering darkness, but the gun in his hand was clearly visible. "Mrs. Sterling," the man said calmly, as if they were meeting at a board meeting instead of in the wilderness. "Mr. Hale is disappointed. You were supposed to stay put." Nathan set Lily down behind him, his body becoming a shield. His hand found the hunting knife on his belt, pathetic against a gun, but better than nothing. "Tell Marcus he should have done it himself," Vivian said, and Nathan was amazed by the steel in her voice. Hiring others to do his dirty work was always his weakness. The gunman chuckled. "He said you'd still have fight in you, said to make it look like a murder-suicide. Distraught father kills the woman who revealed his wife's death wasn't accidental, then himself. Leaves the poor orphan girl to find the bodies." Red flooded Nathan's vision. This man was talking about Lily like she was collateral damage, a footnote in their sick plan. His grip on the knife tightened. "The girl doesn't need to see this," the gunman continued, almost conversationally. "She can wait in the truck. We'll make it quick." "You're not touching my daughter," Nathan growled, shifting to keep Lily completely hidden. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was tiny, terrified. That single word, filled with trust and fear, crystallized everything for Nathan. Sarah was gone, had been murdered for trying to do the right thing. Now they wanted to take him too, leave Lily alone in a world full of monsters like Marcus Hale. "Not happening. Lily," he said quietly, not taking his eyes off the gunman. "Remember when we practiced what to do if we saw a bear?" "Make noise and back away slowly," she whispered. "That's right. And if that doesn't work, run to the truck and honk the horn until help comes." The gunman shifted impatiently. Touching father-daughter moment, but Nathan moved. Not toward the gunman, but to the side, scooping up a handful of dirt and pine needles and flinging them at the man's face. The gunman reacted instinctively, raising his arm to protect his eyes, and Nathan charged. They went down hard, rolling across the forest floor. The gun flew from the man's grip, disappearing into the underbrush. Nathan heard Vivian shouting for Lily to run, heard his daughter's footsteps crashing through the leaves. Good girl. The gunman was skilled, trained, but Nathan had something he didn't, a father's desperate fury. They traded blows, brutal and efficient, neither holding back. Nathan's knife was knocked away, but he managed to drive his elbow into the man's solar plexus, earning a grunt of pain. "Nathan!" Vivian's voice cut through the fight. She'd found the gun, was holding it with shaking hands, but steady aim. "Move!" Nathan rolled away as the gunman reached for something in his boot, a second weapon. Vivian didn't hesitate. The shot was impossibly loud in the quiet forest, sending birds erupting from the trees. The gunman clutched his shoulder, cursing viciously. "The next one goes in your head," Vivian said coldly. "Tell Marcus he failed. Tell him we have everything, all the evidence, all the records. Tell him Sarah Cole's death will be his downfall." The gunman struggled to his feet, still holding his bleeding shoulder. He looked between them, calculating, then apparently decided the odds weren't in his favor. "This isn't over," he snarled, backing toward the trees. "Hale has resources you can't imagine." "So do I," Vivian replied. "And now I have something more. Someone who lost everything because of Marcus's greed. Someone with nothing left to lose." The gunman disappeared into the darkness, leaving a trail of blood. Nathan knew they should follow, make sure he was truly gone. But Lily's frightened calls from the direction of the truck pulled him away. "We need to go," he said, taking the gun from Vivian's trembling hands. "He'll have backup coming." They ran, stumbling over roots and rocks in the deepening darkness. Nathan's truck sat where he'd left it, Lily visible through the windshield, her small hands pressed against the glass. The relief on her face when she saw him nearly broke his heart. He yanked open the door and lifted her out, holding her tight for just a moment. "You did so good, baby. So brave, just like—" He couldn't finish, just like her mother. "Is the bad man gone?" Lily asked, her face buried in his neck. "For now." Nathan set her in the back seat, buckling her in with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Vivian climbed painfully into the passenger seat, her designer suit now completely ruined, blood from various cuts staining the fabric. Nathan started the engine and threw the truck into reverse, not bothering with a three-point turn. He'd driven these logging roads since high school, could navigate them in his sleep. But tonight, every shadow could hide a threat. Every bend could be an ambush. "Where are we going?" Vivian asked, gripping the door handle as Nathan took a turn too fast. "Somewhere safe." But even as he said it, Nathan wondered if such a place existed anymore. If Marcus Hale had really killed Sarah, if he had cops and federal agents in his pocket, then nowhere was safe. "I have a cabin," Vivian said suddenly. "Off the grid, purchased through shell companies Marcus doesn't know about. It's about 2 hours north, near Steamboat Springs." Nathan glanced in the rearview mirror. Lily had her eyes closed, but he could tell she wasn't sleeping. Her hands were clenched too tight, her breathing too controlled. His little girl trying to be brave in a world that had suddenly become terrifying. "Why should I trust you?" he asked Vivian quietly. "You just admitted you're the reason my wife is dead." Vivian was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with 3 years of guilt. "You shouldn't trust me. But right now, I'm the only one who can help you get justice for Sarah. And like I told our friend back there, you have nothing left to lose, and I have everything to gain by taking Marcus down. I have Lily. I have everything to lose." "Which is exactly why Marcus will come after her," Vivian said bluntly. "He knows the power of leverage, of pressure points. As long as he's free, she'll never be safe. None of us will." Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. The worst part was that she was right. If even half of what she'd said was true, Marcus Hale wouldn't leave loose ends. And Nathan, Lily, and Vivian were 3 very large loose ends. "Tell me everything," he said finally. "From the beginning. Everything about Sarah, about what she found, about what happened to her." As they drove through the Colorado darkness, Vivian began to speak. She told him about Sarah's discovery, financial records showing millions in drug money being laundered through real estate developments. About how his wife had tried to be discreet, coming to Vivian privately because she'd believed in giving people a chance to make things right. "She was supposed to meet with me that day," Vivian said softly. "The day she died. She was bringing the original documents she'd found, wanted to hand them over personally. But her brakes failed on that curve on Highway 285, Nathan finished numbly. They said it was mechanical failure, that the line had worn through." "Cut," Vivian corrected. "Precisely cut to fail at highway speeds." "Marcus has a man who specializes in making murders look like accidents. The same man who was supposed to make my death look like a kidnapping gone wrong." Nathan felt like he was drowning on dry land. Every certainty in his life was crumbling. Sarah's death, the foundation of his and Lily's grief and recovery, had been a lie. She hadn't died because of bad luck or poor maintenance. She'd died because she'd tried to do the right thing. "Why didn't you go to the authorities after Sarah died?" The question came out as an accusation. "I tried." Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. "But the first detective I approached ended up dead 2 days later. Apparent suicide. After that, I knew I had to be smarter, more careful. I've spent 3 years gathering evidence, building an airtight case. I was so close. And then Marcus found out. Last week. I'm not sure how. Maybe I trusted the wrong person. Maybe he had surveillance I didn't know about. But he invited me to dinner, just the 2 of us, and over a very expensive bottle of wine, he told me I had 2 choices, disappear forever or disappear permanently. So you chose option 1? I chose option 3, pretend to accept his offer while planning to expose everything. But he was a step ahead. The men who grabbed me this afternoon, they were supposed to be my security detail." She laughed bitterly. "Never trust anyone who can be bought." They drove in silence for a while, the only sounds the rumble of the engine and Lily's quiet breathing from the back seat. Nathan's mind churned through everything he'd learned, trying to reconcile the narrative of the last 3 years with this new, horrible truth. He thought about all the moments that should have been clues. Sarah's sudden anxiety, her insistence on updating their life insurance just weeks before she died, the way she'd held Lily extra long those last few mornings, as if she knew their time was limited. The new lock she'd wanted installed, which he'd dismissed as unnecessary. She knew, he said suddenly. Sarah knew she was in danger. Vivian nodded slowly. She was smart. She probably realized what she'd stumbled into was bigger than just some financial irregularities. But she was also brave. She didn't run. She tried to fix it. And it got her killed. The words tasted like ashes in Nathan's mouth. Daddy? Lily's small voice from the back seat made both adults turn. Are we in trouble because of Mommy? Nathan met his daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror, those same warm brown eyes that Sarah had passed on. How did you explain to an 8-year-old that her mother had been murdered? That the world was full of men who would kill to protect their wealth? No, sweetheart, he said firmly. We're not in trouble because of Mommy. Some bad people did bad things, and now we need to stop them. Mommy would want us to be brave and do what's right. Like superheroes? Lily asked hopefully. Yeah, Nathan managed a weak smile. Like superheroes. Vivian turned to look at Lily properly, for the first time since the attack. Your mom was the real superhero, Lily. She stood up to very powerful people because she knew it was right. She was protecting everyone, especially you. Is that why the bad man wanted to hurt us? Because Mommy was a hero? The innocent question hit Nathan like a physical blow. From the mouths of babes came the most profound truths. Yeah, baby, that's exactly why. They'd left the main highway now, turning onto increasingly narrow roads that wound up into the mountains. Nathan kept checking the mirrors, looking for headlights that might be following, but saw nothing. That didn't mean they were safe. Professionals knew how to tail someone without being seen. The cabin, he asked Vivian. How secure is it? Very. I had it built as a safe house after Sarah's death, when I realized how deep this went. Solar panels, well water, satellite internet through encrypted channels. And, she paused, a safe room with enough supplies for a month. You've been planning for this. I've been planning for war, Vivian corrected. Marcus Hale destroyed everything I built my company on. Integrity, honest business, legitimate success. He turned my life's work into a criminal enterprise without my knowledge. Your wife died trying to expose that. So yes, I've been planning. Nathan felt a strange kinship forming with this woman he'd just met, this millionaire whose world was so different from his own. They were both victims of Marcus Hale, both carrying guilt and anger in equal measure. But while Nathan had spent 3 years trying to rebuild a life for Lily, Vivian had spent them planning revenge. What kind of evidence do you have? He asked. Financial records going back a decade. Recordings of meetings where Marcus explicitly discussed the laundering operations, photos of him with known cartel members, bank statements from offshore accounts, and, she hesitated, a recording of him discussing Sarah's murder. Nathan nearly drove off the road. What? From 2 years ago, he was drunk at a private party, bragging to another associate about how he'd handled the teacher problem. I had the room bugged. And you've just been sitting on this? Nathan's voice rose, anger flooding through him. You have proof that he killed my wife and you did nothing. I tried, Vivian shot back. Do you know what happened to the first journalist I approached with this story? Car accident. The second? Overdose, despite having no history of drug use. An ambitious young prosecutor who was interested transferred to North Dakota suddenly, after his daughter was nearly kidnapped. Marcus doesn't just kill problems. He destroys lives, piece by piece. Nathan forced himself to breathe, to think past the rage. So what's different now? Now he's overplayed his hand. Trying to bury me alive, sending gunmen after a father and child, he's getting desperate, sloppy. And she pulled out a phone Nathan hadn't noticed before, one of those military-grade encrypted models. I managed to send copies of everything to a friend at the Washington Post before they grabbed me. If I don't check in within 48 hours, it all goes public. Then we just need to survive 48 hours. No, Vivian shook her head. We need to do more than survive. We need to get Marcus on record, confessing. We need something so damning that no amount of lawyers or bribes can make it go away. The evidence I have is good, but a good legal team could create reasonable doubt. We need him to hang himself. Nathan glanced back at Lily, who'd finally fallen asleep, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. Her small face was peaceful, trusting even in sleep that her father would keep her safe. The weight of that trust was crushing. "I'm not using my daughter as bait," he said flatly. "I would never ask you to." "But Nathan," Vivian's voice was gentle but firm, "she's already in danger. The moment you pulled me from that grave, you both became targets. Our only way out is through." They turned onto a dirt road that was barely more than a trail, winding through dense pine forest. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing but trees and shadows. Nathan had to admit, if Vivian hadn't been directing him, he'd never have found this place. The cabin appeared suddenly, a modern structure that somehow blended perfectly with its surroundings. All dark wood and stone, with large windows that would offer stunning views in daylight, but now reflected nothing but darkness. "There's a garage around back," Vivian directed. "We need to get the truck out of sight." As Nathan pulled into the hidden garage, motion sensors triggered soft lighting. The space was larger than expected, with room for 3 vehicles and what looked like extensive storage. Vivian was already moving, despite her injuries, entering a code into a panel by the door. "Biometric scanner," she explained, pressing her thumb to a reader. "The whole place is wired with security. If anyone approaches, we'll know." Nathan carried the still sleeping Lily inside, marveling at the contrast between the cabin's rustic exterior and its high-tech interior. Multiple computer monitors lined one wall, security feeds showing every angle of approach. A full kitchen, comfortable living space, and 3 bedrooms were visible from the main room. "Put her in the back bedroom," Vivian suggested. "It's the most secure, no windows." As Nathan tucked Lily into a bed that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage, his daughter stirred. "Daddy, are we safe?" "Yeah, baby, we're safe for now." "Is the lady going to help us catch the bad guys who hurt Mommy?" Nathan smoothed her hair back, a gesture that always reminded him painfully of Sarah. "We're going to try." Lily nodded sleepily. "Good. Mommy would want the bad guys caught." She yawned. "I love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Princess, more than all the stars." It was their ritual, started by Sarah and continued even after her death. Lily smiled slightly and finished it. "More than all the fish in the sea." Nathan kissed her forehead and quietly left the room, closing the door softly behind him. In the main room, Vivian had pulled up multiple screens of information, news feeds, financial data, what looked like surveillance footage. "Marcus knows I'm alive by now," she said without preamble. "His man will have reported back. He'll be mobilizing everything he has to find us." "Let him come," Nathan said grimly, checking the gun he'd taken from the gunman. "I've got some things to say to him about my wife." "You can't think like that," Vivian warned. "Marcus Hale didn't build his empire by fighting fair. He'll use every dirty trick, every piece of leverage. He'll go after your family, your friends, anyone you've ever cared about." "I don't have much family left," Nathan said. "Parents gone, Sarah's parents gone. It's just me and Lily." "What about work? Friends? Lily's school?" Nathan's stomach dropped as he thought about the implications. His construction crew, the guys he'd worked with for years. Lily's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who'd been so kind after Sarah's death. Their neighbor, elderly Mrs. Chen, who watched Lily after school sometimes. "We have to warn them," he said urgently. "We can't," Vivian said softly. "Any contact we make could lead Marcus right to us. Or worse, to them. The best thing we can do for everyone is to end this quickly." Nathan slumped into a chair, though the weight of the day crashing down on him. This morning, his biggest concern had been whether he'd packed enough snacks for the camping trip. Now he was hiding in a safe house with a millionaire. His wife's murder had been revealed, and his daughter was in mortal danger. "Tell me about Marcus Hale," he said finally. "Everything. If we're going to war, I need to know my enemy." Vivian poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a bottle that probably cost more than Nathan made in a week, and began to talk. She painted a picture of a man who'd started with nothing, building a business empire through brilliance and brutality in equal measure. Marcus Hale didn't just defeat his enemies, he annihilated them. Former partners ended up bankrupt or dead. Competitors found their businesses mysteriously failing. Anyone who crossed him learned the true meaning of regret. "He has a son," Vivian said, pulling up a photo on one of the screens. David, 25, being groomed to take over the empire. But David has a conscience his father lacks. He's our way in. You want to use his son against him? I want to show his son what his father really is. David idolizes Marcus, thinks he's a tough but honest businessman. If David knew about the murders, the drug money, the innocent people destroyed, he might help us. Nathan studied the photo. David Hale looked like a younger, softer version of his father. Same sharp features, same expensive suit, but his eyes lacked the cold calculation that marked Marcus. Or he might warn his father and get us all killed, Nathan pointed out. It's a risk, Vivian admitted, but we need an ally inside Marcus's organization. Someone who can get us close enough for him to incriminate himself. You have a plan, Nathan said. It wasn't a question. Marcus is hosting a charity gala in 3 days. 500 of Colorado's elite, all gathered to celebrate his philanthropic efforts. Her voice dripped with disgust. He'll be announcing a new children's hospital wing. Named after himself, of course. You want to confront him at a public event? I want to destroy him at his moment of triumph. Can you imagine? All those cameras, all those witnesses, when the truth comes out about what he really is? Nathan could imagine it. He could also imagine the dozens of ways it could go wrong, ending with bullets and blood and Lily growing up an orphan. There's another way, he said slowly, an idea forming. You said he likes to handle problems personally when they get complicated enough. His ego demands it. He needs to be the one to deliver the killing blow. Then we make ourselves the perfect problem. So tempting, so close, that he has to come himself. But we control when and where. Vivian's eyes sharpened with interest. You were military. Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan. I know about setting ambushes, about making the enemy come to you on your terms. This isn't Afghanistan. Marcus won't come alone. No, but he'll come. If we play this right, if we make him angry enough, desperate enough, his ego won't let him stay away. Nathan stood, pacing as the plan solidified. You said you have recordings of him discussing crimes. Several. Can you doctor them? Make it sound like he's confessing to things he hasn't done yet? Vivian frowned. That would destroy their value as evidence. Not those recordings. New ones. We make him think we have something even more damaging, something that threatens not just his freedom, but his legacy, his son's respect. We make him come to us to get it. And when he comes, we're ready. Cameras, microphones, maybe even a few federal agents who aren't on his payroll. Nathan stopped pacing, meeting Vivian's gaze. We give him the stage and let him perform. Men like Marcus Hale always hang themselves if you give them enough rope. Vivian was quiet for a long moment, considering. It could work. But we'd need bait, something irresistible. We have it, Nathan said grimly. Me. The husband of the woman he murdered. The father protecting his daughter. The perfect victim for him to silence. And you. The woman who should be dead, who knows all his secrets. We're the loose ends he can't afford to leave untied. You're talking about making us targets. We already are targets. This way, we're targets on our own terms. Vivian stood, walking to the window despite the darkness beyond. Sarah would have liked you, she said suddenly. The way you think, the way you protect your daughter while still fighting for what's right. She chose well. Nathan's throat tightened. It was the first time in 3 years someone had talked about Sarah as more than just a victim, as someone who'd made choices, who'd had agency even in the face of danger. She would have liked you too, he managed. She always respected people who built something from nothing, who earned their success. I didn't earn it, Vivian said bitterly. It was all built on blood money I didn't even know about. You didn't know. And when you found out, you fought back. That matters. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, 2 people brought together by tragedy, united in purpose. Outside, the Colorado wilderness stretched endlessly, but inside this high-tech cabin, they were planning to take down one of the most powerful men in the state. We'll need help, Vivian said finally. I have contacts, people who've been waiting for the right moment to move against Marcus, a judge who stayed clean despite multiple bribe attempts, an FBI agent in Washington who's been building a case for years, a journalist who's been documenting suspicious deaths connected to Marcus's businesses. Can we trust them? We can trust that they want Marcus gone as much as we do. That will have to be enough. Nathan thought about Lily sleeping in the next room, trusting him to keep her safe, to make the world right again. He thought about Sarah, brilliant and brave Sarah, who died trying to do the right thing. He thought about all the other victims of Marcus Hale's greed, all the families destroyed, all the lives cut short. Make the calls, he said. Set it up. In 3 days, at that charity gala, Marcus Hale learns what justice looks like. Vivian turned from the window, and for the first time since he'd pulled her from the ground, she smiled. It was sharp and dangerous, the smile of someone who'd been pushed too far and had decided to push back. He won't know what hit him, she promised. As Nathan settled in for a sleepless night of planning and preparation, he thought he heard Sarah's voice on the wind, gentle and approving. Maybe it was just his imagination. Maybe it was wishful thinking, but he chose to take it as a sign. They were doing the right thing. They were finishing what she'd started. The hunt for Marcus Hale had begun. Nathan woke to the sound of Lily's laughter, a sound so unexpected in their current situation that for a moment he thought he was dreaming. He found her in the kitchen with Vivian, who was somehow making pancakes despite her injuries from yesterday. The domestic scene was so normal, it felt surreal. "Daddy!" Lily called out, her face bright with a child's ability to adapt. "Miss Vivian is making special pancakes with chocolate chips." "Is she now?" Nathan accepted a cup of coffee from Vivian, noting the dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept either. "I figured we all needed something normal," Vivian said quietly, "before everything changes." As they ate breakfast together, Nathan's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He tensed, but Vivian nodded for him to answer. He put it on speaker. "Mr. Cole?" The voice was smooth, cultured, and somehow familiar. "This is David Hale." Nathan's blood turned to ice. Across the table, Vivian went very still. Lily looked between them, sensing the sudden tension. "I believe you have something that belongs to my father," David continued, "or rather, someone." "Your father tried to bury her alive," Nathan said, surprised by how steady his own voice sounded. "She doesn't belong to anyone." There was a pause. "I'm not calling on my father's behalf, Mr. Cole. I'm calling to warn you. He's mobilizing every resource he has. Private military contractors, corrupt law enforcement, people you wouldn't believe have been bought. You have maybe 6 hours before they find you." "Why are you telling us this?" Vivian spoke up, and Nathan heard David's sharp intake of breath. "Miss Sterling, I'm glad you're alive." The young man's voice cracked slightly. "I didn't know about any of it. Not until last night when Father was screaming at his men about their failure. I heard him say things about a teacher, about murders made to look like accidents." Nathan gripped the phone tighter. "Your father killed my wife." "I'm beginning to understand that," David said quietly. "I've spent the night going through his private files. The things I've found, God, I think I'm going to be sick." "Then help us," Vivian urged. "You know your father better than anyone. Help us stop him. I can't directly betray him. He's still my father, despite everything. But," David paused, seeming to wrestle with himself. "There's a federal prosecutor in Denver, Christina Martinez. She's clean, completely untouchable. Father tried to buy her 3 times and failed. If you can get to her with your evidence, she'll listen." "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Nathan asked. "You don't," David admitted. "But I'm also going to tell you something else. Father is at his hunting lodge near Vale right now, planning your deaths. He'll be there until tomorrow morning, then he's coming back for the gala. If you wanted to know where he is, when he's relatively unguarded, well, now you know." The line went dead. Nathan looked at Vivian, who was already pulling up information on her laptop. "The hunting lodge," she murmured. "I know it. Isolated, private road. Only one way in or out. It would be perfect for a confrontation." "Or perfect for an ambush," Nathan countered. "Daddy, who was that?" Lily asked, syrup on her chin. "Was it another bad man?" Nathan wiped her face gently. "We're not sure yet, sweetheart. He might be trying to help. Because his daddy is the really bad man? Sometimes his daughter's perceptiveness amazed him. Yeah, something like that. Vivian's phone rang, one of her encrypted lines. She answered carefully, then her face transformed with relief. Judge Harrison, she mouthed to Nathan. The conversation was brief but promising. The judge was willing to issue warrants, but they needed more concrete evidence, something irrefutable. We need Marcus on tape, confessing, the judge had said. Get me that, and I'll have federal marshals there within minutes. After she hung up, Nathan and Vivian looked at each other. The same thought was clearly running through both their minds. The hunting lodge, Nathan said slowly. If we could get there, confront him while he's planning our murders. It's insane, Vivian said, but her eyes were already calculating. He'll have guards, security systems. But he won't expect us to come to him. He's the hunter. We're supposed to be the prey. What about Lily? Vivian glanced at the little girl, who was drawing pictures at the table, seemingly absorbed in her art, but Nathan knew she was listening. I know someone, Nathan said after a moment. My old army buddy, Jake Morrison, lives completely off the grid in Wyoming, owes me his life from Kandahar. He could keep her safe. I don't want to go away, Lily said without looking up from her drawing. I want to stay with you, Daddy. Nathan knelt beside his daughter, taking her small hands in his. Remember when Mommy used to read you the story about the brave knight? Lily nodded, her lower lip trembling slightly. Sometimes the knight had to make sure the princess was safe in the castle while he went to fight the dragon. That didn't mean he loved the princess any less. It meant he loved her so much he needed to know she was protected. But what if the dragon hurts you? Lily's voice was very small. Then Uncle Jake will take care of you, and you'll know that Daddy was brave, just like Mommy was brave. Lily threw her arms around his neck, holding on tight. I don't want you to be brave. I want you to be safe. Nathan held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, memorizing the feeling of her small arms around his neck. Sometimes we have to be brave so that the people we love can be safe. But I promise you I will do everything I can to come back to you. Vivian turned away, giving them privacy, but Nathan saw her wipe at her eyes. Whatever else she was, whatever guilt she carried, she understood the weight of what they were asking. 2 hours later, Jake Morrison arrived in a battered pickup truck that had seen better decades. He was exactly as Nathan remembered him, 6'4", built like a mountain, with kind eyes that had seen too much war. Brother, Jake said simply, pulling Nathan into a bear hug. Been too long. Jake, this is my daughter Lily. Jake knelt down to Lily's level, his massive frame somehow becoming less intimidating. Hey there, little warrior. Your dad tells me you like horses. Lily's eyes widened. You have horses. 3 of them, and they all need someone to feed them apples and brush their manes. Think you could help me with that? For the first time since they'd fled the forest, Lily smiled genuinely. Nathan felt his heart break and mend simultaneously. As Jake loaded Lily's hastily packed bag into his truck, Nathan pulled him aside. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you, Jake interrupted. But if it does, she'll be my daughter. I promise you that. They watched the truck disappear down the mountain road, Lily's small hand waving from the window until they couldn't see her anymore. Nathan felt like a piece of his soul had been torn away. You did the right thing, Vivian said softly. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because you're a good father. Sarah chose well. They spent the rest of the morning preparing. Vivian had equipment Nathan hadn't expected, professional recording devices, tiny cameras that could be hidden anywhere, even what looked like body armor. I told you I'd been preparing for war, she said when she caught his surprised look. They studied the layout of Marcus's hunting lodge, memorizing every entrance, every window, every possible escape route. Vivian had old architectural plans from when the lodge was built, and satellite images from various angles. There's a service entrance here, she pointed to a spot on the blueprint. The catering company uses it during his parties. It's usually less guarded. How many men will he have? Normally, 4 or 5. But given what's happening, could be double that. So we're walking into a fortress with maybe 10 armed guards to confront a man who's killed multiple people. When you put it like that, it sounds like suicide. Isn't it? Vivian looked at him steadily. Maybe. But Sarah didn't die for nothing. If we can expose Marcus, if we can get justice, then her death meant something. Isn't that worth the risk? Nathan thought about Sarah, about her fierce determination to always do the right thing. He thought about Lily, growing up in a world where men like Marcus Hale could murder with impunity. He thought about all the other victims, all the other families destroyed. Yeah, he said finally, it's worth it. They left as the sun began to set, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. The drive to Vale was tense, neither speaking much, both lost in their own thoughts. Nathan kept checking his phone, looking at pictures of Lily, of Sarah, reminding himself why this mattered. Tell me about her, Vivian said suddenly. Sarah. What was she like beyond what I knew? Nathan found himself smiling despite everything. She was terrible at cooking. Could burn water, I swear, but she'd try anyway, always experimenting with some new recipe she'd found online. The smoke alarm was basically our dinner bell. Vivian laughed, a surprise sound. I wouldn't have guessed that. She loved thunderstorms. Would sit on the porch during them, just watching the lightning. Said it reminded her that nature was bigger than any human problem. She read to Lily every night, did all the voices for different characters. She could make anyone laugh, even on their worst day. She sounds wonderful. She was. She really was. Nathan's voice caught. She deserves so much better than what happened to her. We're going to make it right, Vivian said firmly. Tonight, we make it right. The hunting lodge appeared through the trees like something from a horror movie. Massive, isolated, lit from within but surrounded by darkness. They parked a quarter-mile away, approaching on foot through the forest. Nathan's military training kicked in, moving silently through the underbrush, Vivian following his lead. They could see guards patrolling the perimeter, professionals by the look of them. But there were gaps in their pattern, moments when certain areas were unobserved. There, Nathan whispered, pointing to a moment when the service entrance would be clear. We have maybe 30 seconds. They waited, watching the patterns repeat twice more to be sure. Then they moved, quick and silent, Nathan picking the lock with skills he'd learned in a very different life. The door opened soundlessly, and they were inside. The service corridor was empty, dimly lit. They could hear voices from deeper in the lodge, Marcus's distinctive baritone carrying over the others. Nathan fitted a tiny camera to his collar, another to Vivian's purse. The recording devices were already running. They moved toward the voices, hearts pounding. Through a partially open door, they could see into what looked like a study. Marcus Hale stood at the center, surrounded by 4 men Nathan recognized as the type of contractors he'd worked with in Afghanistan, mercenaries, essentially. I want them found before dawn, Marcus was saying. The woman knows too much, and coal is a loose end we can't afford. But the girl could be useful. Nathan's vision went red. Vivian's hand on his arm was the only thing that kept him from charging in right then. Insurance, Marcus continued. Nathan Cole will do anything to protect his daughter. We take her, he'll come to us, bring Sterling with him. Then we clean up all 3 problems at once. What about your son? One of the mercenaries asked. He's been asking questions. Marcus's face darkened. David is young, idealistic. He'll learn that the world requires men willing to do unpleasant things. Or he'll be replaced. I have other options for an heir. The casual way he discussed potentially discarding his own son was chilling. Nathan felt Vivian tense beside him. The teacher was easier, Marcus mused, and Nathan stopped breathing. So trusting, so naive. She actually thought she was helping by bringing those documents to Sterling. All we had to do was cut her brake line and wait. Physics did the rest. Nathan's hand went to his gun, but Vivian held him back, her eyes pleading. They needed more. Just like we'll handle Cole and Sterling, Marcus continued, though I think this time something more dramatic. A murder-suicide, perhaps. Grief-stricken widower snaps, kills the woman he blames for his wife's death, then himself. Tragic, but tidy. What about the evidence Sterling claims to have? Marcus waved dismissively. What evidence? Some financial records that could mean anything? Recordings taken out of context? My lawyers will tear it apart, and once she's dead, who's going to pursue it? This was it. This was what they needed. Nathan pulled out his phone, sending the recording directly to Judge Harrison, to the FBI agent Vivian had contacted, to 3 major news outlets. Then he stepped into the room. "How about the husband of the woman you murdered?" he said calmly. "I might pursue it." The room exploded into motion. Guns appeared in hands, all pointed at Nathan. Marcus, to his credit, barely flinched. "Mr. Cole," he said smoothly, "how unexpected and unwise." Vivian stepped in beside Nathan. "Hello, Marcus. Surprised to see me above ground?" Now Marcus did react, his face flushing with anger. "You should have stayed buried, Vivian. Like Sarah Cole should have stayed quiet." Vivian's voice was steady. "Like all the others who got in your way?" Marcus studied them for a moment, then smiled. It was the smile of a predator who thinks the prey has just made a fatal error. "You're recording this, I assume?" "How quaint. Do you really think it matters? My people will have you both dead and buried before any recording sees the light of day." "Your people?" Nathan asked. "Like your son David, who called us this morning? Who's been going through your files, learning what his father really is?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Marcus's eyes. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Call him. Ask him where he is right now." Marcus pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried again, same result. His face darkened with rage. "David is with the FBI right now," Vivian said calmly, "turning over everything he found in your private files. Financial records, correspondence, even your personal journal where you detailed every crime, every murder, every life you destroyed. You turned my son against me." Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. "No," Nathan said. "You did that yourself when you became a monster. David's just choosing to be the man you never were. Honest, decent, good." Marcus laughed, a harsh sound. "Good? Decent? Those are words for weak men, poor men. I built an empire. I created thousands of jobs, donated millions to charity." "Built on blood money," Vivian shot back. "Jobs funded by drug cartels, charity to wash the blood off your hands." "The world runs on blood money," Marcus shouted. "Every fortune, every empire, every success story has bodies buried in its foundation. I just had the courage to do what needed to be done." "Like murdering my wife?" Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. Marcus turned to him, eyes glittering. "Your wife was collateral damage. She stuck her nose where it didn't belong, just like you're doing now." "Say it," Nathan demanded. "Say you killed her." "Fine. I ordered Sarah Cole's death. I cut her brake lines, or rather, I had them cut. I watched the news report about the accident with satisfaction, knowing a problem had been solved. Is that what you wanted to hear?" "Yes," Nathan said, pulling out his phone to show the recording had been live streaming. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And so did about 10,000 viewers who are watching right now." Marcus's face went white. He looked at his men, but they were already backing away, understanding that the game had changed. Being muscle for a wealthy businessman was one thing. Being accomplices to murder broadcast live was another. "You're done, Marcus," Vivian said. "Federal marshals are already on their way. That confession you just gave? It's playing on every major news site. Your empire is crumbling as we speak." Marcus's hand moved toward his desk drawer, but Nathan was faster, his gun out and aimed. "Don't even think about it." "You won't shoot me," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You're not a killer." "I've killed before," Nathan said steadily. "In Afghanistan, defending my country. And I'll kill now, defending my daughter's future. The only difference is, those enemies were more honorable than you." They could hear sirens in the distance, growing closer. Marcus's mercenaries were already disappearing, rats fleeing a sinking ship. "You think you've won?" Marcus snarled. "You think this ends with me? There are dozens like me, hundreds, men who do what needs to be done to keep the world running." "Maybe," Nathan agreed, "but today, right now, one of them falls, and that's enough. That's justice for Sarah." The federal marshals burst in like an avenging army, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus was forced to his knees, hands cuffed behind his back. As they dragged him away, he turned back to Nathan and Vivian. "This isn't over," he shouted. "I have lawyers, connections. I'll be out in a year." "No," a new voice said from the doorway. You won't. David Hale stood there, looking older than his 25 years, holding a box of files. These are from your safe, Father. The real records. The ones detailing every murder, every bribe, every crime for the last 20 years. I gave copies to the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and 6 major newspapers. Marcus stared at his son in disbelief. David, you're my blood, my legacy. I am, David agreed sadly, which is why I had to stop you. To salvage something from our name that isn't soaked in blood. As the marshals dragged Marcus away, he was screaming threats and curses, the dignified businessman facade completely shattered. David watched him go, then turned to Nathan. I'm sorry about your wife, he said simply. I know it doesn't mean much, but I'm sorry. Nathan studied the young man, seeing genuine remorse. It means something. Thank you for doing the right thing. David nodded and walked away, shoulders bowed under the weight of his father's crimes. Nathan felt a moment of sympathy. The young man would spend the rest of his life trying to atone for sins that weren't his. The lodge was swarming with law enforcement now, evidence being cataloged, witnesses being interviewed. Nathan and Vivian found themselves sitting on the front steps, exhausted beyond measure. We did it, Vivian said, sounding almost surprised. We actually did it. Sarah did it, Nathan corrected. We just finished what she started. They sat in companionable silence, watching the sun rise over the mountains. It painted the peaks in shades of pink and gold, beautiful and indifferent to the human drama below. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from Jake. It was a picture of Lily on a horse, grinning widely, chocolate on her face. She's asking when you're coming to get her, the message read. Soon, Nathan typed back. Very soon. Christina Martinez, the federal prosecutor David had mentioned, arrived as the sun fully rose. She was everything David had promised, sharp, incorruptible, and determined. Mr. Cole, Ms. Sterling, she said, sitting beside them on the steps. What you did tonight was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Probably more of the latter, Nathan admitted. Definitely. But it worked. Marcus Hale's confession, combined with the evidence David provided and what you've gathered, Ms. Sterling, we have enough to put him away for life. Multiple life sentences, actually. What about his organization? Vivian asked. The corrupt cops, the other businessmen involved. We'll get them, Martinez promised. Marcus is the type to make deals, to trade information for consideration. By the time we're done, we'll have cleaned house across 3 states. And Sarah's murder? Nathan asked quietly. Martinez's expression softened. First-degree murder charges. He'll never walk free again, Mr. Cole. Your wife will have justice. Nathan felt something release in his chest, a weight he'd been carrying for 3 years without fully realizing it. Not closure, that would never come, but something like peace. His phone rang. It was Jake, and he sounded worried. Nathan, you need to hear this. Turn on the news. Nathan found a television inside the lodge, turning it to a news channel. Marcus Hale's face filled the screen, but it wasn't footage from tonight. It was from earlier, a recorded message he must have made as insurance. If you're watching this, Marcus's recorded voice said, then I've been arrested on false charges, framed by business rivals, and a grieving widower, who can't accept his wife's accidental death. But I want the people of Colorado to know the truth. Every dollar I've earned, every deal I've made, has been to build this state's economy. If I've cut corners, it was to create jobs. If I've made hard choices, it was to protect prosperity. He's trying to control the narrative, Vivian said, disgusted. But then the screen split, and another face appeared. David Hale, live from what looked like a news studio. My father just tried to lie to you one last time, David said calmly. So let me tell you the truth. My father is a murderer. He killed Sarah Cole and at least 6 others. He laundered money for drug cartels. He corrupted law enforcement and destroyed anyone who opposed him. I know this because I've seen the evidence, because I've heard his confessions, and because I've spent my entire life watching him operate. I'm ashamed to be his son, but I won't be silent about his crimes. The news anchors were clearly stunned, trying to process the dramatic turn. Nathan felt a surge of respect for David Hale. It couldn't be easy, publicly destroying your own father. That took courage, he said. He's going to need protection, Martinez noted. Marcus still has loyalists who might want revenge. I'll make sure he gets it, Vivian said. It's the least I can do. As the morning wore on, the full scope of the victory became clear. Marcus's confession had indeed gone viral, spreading across social media faster than anyone could have imagined. Other victims were coming forward, emboldened by Nathan and Vivian's courage. The house of cards was collapsing. Nathan walked outside to call Jake again, to tell him he'd be there soon to pick up Lily. As he dialed, he looked up at the mountains, thinking about Sarah. She would have been proud, he thought. Scared for him, angry at the risk he'd taken, but proud that he'd stood up to evil. Hey, brother, Jake answered. Saw the news. You're a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a dad who wanted justice for his wife. Same thing. In my book, Lily's good, wants to know if she can name one of the horses. Tell her she can name all of them if she wants. Nathan heard Lily's delighted squeal in the background and smiled. They'd won. Marcus Hale would pay for his crimes. Sarah had justice. And Lily had a future free from the shadow of her mother's killer. Jake, I'll be there in 3 hours. Tell Lily I love her. Will do. And Nathan. Sarah would be proud. Nathan ended the call and stood for a moment in the morning sun. The world felt different somehow, lighter. The wound of Sarah's loss would never fully heal, but knowing her killer would face justice, knowing her death had meaning, it helped. Vivian joined him outside. What will you do now? She asked. Go get my daughter. Go home. Try to build a life that would make Sarah proud. And you? Vivian considered. I have an empire to dismantle. Every dirty deal, every corrupt contract, I'm going to undo it all. Then maybe I'll build something clean, something Sarah would have approved of. They shook hands, two unlikely allies brought together by tragedy and united by justice. Thank you, Nathan said simply. No, Vivian replied. Thank you for believing me, for fighting beside me, for finishing what Sarah started. As Nathan drove away from the lodge, heading toward Wyoming and his daughter, he thought about the strange turns life could take. Yesterday morning, he'd been a grieving widower on a camping trip. Today, he was the man who'd brought down Marcus Hale. Tomorrow, he'd be a father again, holding his daughter, building a future on the ashes of the past. The road stretched ahead, winding through mountains and valleys, leading toward something that felt almost like hope. In the rearview mirror, the hunting lodge grew smaller and smaller, taking with it the shadows that had haunted him for 3 years. Sarah was gone, would always be gone, but her courage lived on in the justice they'd won, in the lives they'd saved by stopping Marcus, in the future Lily would have because her mother had been brave enough to stand up to evil. And that, Nathan thought as he drove toward his daughter, was its own kind of immortality. The Wyoming landscape opened before Nathan like a promise of peace, endless plains meeting mountains under a sky so vast it seemed to dwarf human concerns. But even as he drove toward his daughter, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, lawyers, even Hollywood producers wanting to buy his story. He ignored them all. The only story that mattered was the one he'd tell Lily, that the bad men who hurt Mommy were going to jail forever. Jake's ranch appeared in the distance, a sprawling property that looked like something from an old western. Nathan could see horses in the pasture, and there, sitting on the fence like she'd lived there all her life, was Lily. She spotted his truck and began waving frantically, jumping down and running toward the approaching vehicle. Nathan barely had the truck in park before Lily yanked open the door and threw herself into his arms. "Daddy! Did you catch the bad guys? Did you win?" "Yeah, baby," Nathan said, holding her tight. "We won." Jake approached more slowly, giving them their moment. When Nathan finally looked up, his old friend's expression was troubled. "We need to talk," Jake said quietly, "after she goes to bed." That evening, after Lily had exhausted herself telling Nathan about every single horse and chicken and barn cat on the ranch, after she'd finally fallen asleep in the guest room clutching the stuffed bear Sarah had given her years ago, Jake poured 2 glasses of whiskey and delivered the news. "There's been a development," he said. "Marcus Hale's lawyer called a press conference. They're claiming coercion, entrapment, saying you and Vivian Sterling manufactured evidence." Nathan felt his stomach drop. but we have his confession. On video, live streamed to thousands of people. They're saying it was given under duress, that you threatened him with a gun, that he said what he had to say to survive. Jake took a sip of his whiskey. Nathan, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Nathan's phone buzzed. It was Vivian. Turn on Channel 9, she said without preamble. The television showed Marcus Hale's attorney, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, standing at a podium surrounded by cameras. My client is a victim of a conspiracy between a disturbed widower and a business rival who's been embezzling from her own company for years. The so-called confession was obtained at gunpoint. We have witnesses who will testify that Mr. Cole and Ms. Sterling planned this entire charade to destroy an innocent man. Innocent, Nathan spat. He admitted to killing Sarah. Under duress, Jake reminded him gently. That's what they'll argue. The attorney continued. Furthermore, we have evidence that Ms. Sterling has been siphoning funds from Sterling Enterprises for years, funds that mysteriously match the amounts she claims were laundered. We believe she murdered Sarah Cole herself when the teacher discovered her embezzlement and has spent 3 years planning to frame my client for her own crimes. Nathan was on his feet before he realized it, his fist connecting with the wall hard enough to leave a hole. Jake grabbed him, pulling him back. Easy, brother. That's what they want. You losing control, looking unstable. Nathan's phone rang again. It was Christina Martinez, the federal prosecutor. I'm watching, she said before Nathan could speak. It's bullshit, but it's clever bullshit. They're muddying the waters, creating reasonable doubt. But the evidence David provided is being questioned too. They're claiming David was manipulated by Vivian, that she seduced him and turned him against his father. They have photos of David and Vivian together from various charity events over the years, making it look like a long-term relationship. That's insane. That's legal strategy. They don't have to prove it's true, just create enough doubt that a jury might acquit. Martinez sighed. Mr. Cole, I need you and Ms. Sterling here first thing tomorrow. We need to get ahead of this. Nathan looked at Lily sleeping peacefully in the next room. He thought it was over, thought they were safe. But Marcus Hale's reach extended beyond prison bars. We'll be there, he said. The next morning, Nathan faced an impossible choice. Bring Lily back to Denver where Marcus's people might target her, or leave her with Jake and risk Marcus's lawyers using his absence from his daughter against him. In the end, Lily made the choice for him. I'm coming with you, Daddy, she said firmly, her little chin set in a way that reminded him painfully of Sarah. We're a team. The drive back to Denver was quiet, Lily sensing the tension and staying uncharacteristically silent. As they entered the city, Nathan noticed cars following them. Some were reporters, but others were harder to identify. They met Vivian at the federal building. She looked exhausted, aged years in the days since they'd confronted Marcus. They froze my assets, she said, claiming I'm a flight risk. I can't even pay for a hotel room. You'll stay with us, Nathan said without hesitation. Lily nodded agreement, taking Vivian's hand. The nice lady who made pancakes can have my room, Lily offered. I'll sleep on the couch. Vivian's eyes welled with tears. Thank you, sweetheart. But I couldn't. You will, Nathan said firmly. We're in this together. Martinez's office was a war room, walls covered with documents, photos, timelines. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. They're good, she admitted. Marcus's legal team is probably the best money can buy. They're attacking everything. Chain of custody on evidence, authenticity of recordings, your motivations, your mental states. They've even got a psychologist willing to testify that Nathan is suffering from complicated grief that led to delusions about his wife's death. Delusions? Nathan's voice was dangerous. They're going to paint you as a grieving widower who couldn't accept that his wife's death was an accident. They'll say Vivian manipulated your grief, used you to attack her business rival. They're even suggesting you two are romantically involved, that this whole thing was a lover's plot. Vivian and Nathan looked at each other in shock. That's disgusting, Vivian said. I barely knew him before this week. Doesn't matter. They have photos of you two together at the cabin, at the lodge. Taken out of context, they could suggest anything. What do we do? Nathan asked. We fight back with truth, Martinez said. But I need more. The confession helps, but if they can sell the coercion angle, it might not be enough. Is there anything else? Any other evidence we haven't discussed? Nathan thought hard, then remembered something. Sarah's laptop. I never threw it away. It's in our attic. She backed everything up to it. Get it. Now. Nathan called his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who still had a spare key. Within an hour, she'd retrieved the laptop and was driving it to the federal building. Nathan met her in the parking garage, not wanting to expose the elderly woman to any danger. Nathan, she said, pressing the laptop into his hands, I never believed it was an accident. Sarah was too careful a driver. You get whoever did this to her. Back in Martinez's office, their technical team went to work on the laptop. What they found exceeded everyone's expectations. Sarah hadn't just backed up the financial documents she'd found. She'd recorded conversations, taken photos, documented everything, including a video diary entry from the day before she died. Sarah's face filled the screen and Nathan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. She looked worried but determined, so beautifully alive it hurt to watch. If something happens to me, Sarah's recorded voice said, I want people to know it wasn't an accident. I've discovered something terrible. Marcus Hale and several other prominent businessmen are laundering money for drug cartels through real estate developments. I have proof, which I'm going to give to Vivian Sterling tomorrow. She doesn't know what's happening in her company, I'm sure of it. But Marcus Hale knows I know. I've seen cars following me. My phone has been acting strange. I think I'm in danger. She paused, wiping away a tear. Nathan, if you're watching this, I love you. Take care of our little girl. And please, don't let them get away with it. Be brave, my love. Be brave for both of us. The video ended. The room was silent except for Nathan's harsh breathing. Even Martinez looked shaken. That changes everything, she said quietly. That's premeditation. That's Sarah herself identifying her potential killer. But the revelations weren't over. The technical team found more. Emails Sarah had sent to herself documenting suspicious transactions, photos of Marcus meeting with known cartel members, even a recording of a phone call where Marcus's voice could be heard discussing the teacher problem. This is it, Martinez breathed. This is what we needed. They worked through the night preparing the new evidence for court. Lily fell asleep on a couch in Martinez's office, and Vivian covered her with her jacket. Nathan caught the gesture, the tenderness in it, and thought Sarah would have liked this woman who'd risked everything to get justice. The next morning, they arrived at the courthouse to find it surrounded by media and protesters. Some held signs supporting Nathan and Vivian, others claimed they were destroying an innocent man. Marcus's legal team had done their work well, turning public opinion into a battlefield. Inside the courtroom, Marcus sat with his lawyers, looking every inch the wronged businessman. He'd been released on a $50 million bond, ankle monitor his only restraint. When he saw Nathan, he smiled coldly. David Hale was there too, sitting behind the prosecution, looking miserable but resolute. Marcus wouldn't even look at his son. The judge, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, called for order. What followed was a brutal legal battle. Marcus's lawyers attacked every piece of evidence, every testimony. They brought in experts who questioned the authenticity of the recordings, psychologists who testified about grief-induced delusions, even former employees who claimed Vivian was unstable and vindictive. But then Martinez played Sarah's video diary. The courtroom went absolutely silent as Sarah's face appeared on the screen. Her words, calm and clear, identifying Marcus as a threat before her death, destroyed the defense's narrative. This wasn't a grieving husband's fantasy. This was a victim identifying her killer before the crime. Marcus's lead attorney tried to object, calling it hearsay, but the judge overruled her. The victim's state of mind before her death is absolutely relevant, she said coldly. When the recording of Marcus discussing the teacher problem played, several jury members visibly recoiled. The prosecution's audio expert testified that voice analysis confirmed it was Marcus speaking. Then came the most damaging testimony of all. David Hale took the stand. State your name for the record, Martinez said. David Marcus Hale. What is your relationship to the defendant? David's voice was steady but quiet. He's my father. And yet you're testifying against him. Why? David looked directly at his father for the first time. Because he's guilty. Because he murdered an innocent woman. Because if I don't speak the truth, I'm complicit in his crimes. Marcus's face contorted with rage, and his lawyer had to physically restrain him from standing. David testified for 2 hours, detailing conversations where his father had bragged about his power, about his ability to make problems disappear. He produced documents from his father's private safe, including a ledger that detailed payments to the man who'd sabotaged Sarah's car. He kept trophies, David said, his voice breaking. News clippings about the accidents, the suicides. He kept them like accomplishments. The defense's cross-examination was brutal. They accused David of being mentally unstable, of having daddy issues, of being manipulated by Vivian, but David held firm. I know what I saw, he said. I know who my father really is. And I know that Sarah Cole deserved better than to die for trying to do the right thing. When Vivian took the stand, she was composed and articulate. She detailed the money laundering operation, how she'd discovered it only after Sarah had come to her. She explained her 3 years of investigation, the attempts on her life, the systematic destruction of anyone who opposed Marcus. The defense tried to paint her as a spurned business partner, a woman scorned, even suggesting she'd been having an affair with Marcus that went sour. But Vivian had documents, recordings, proof that contradicted every accusation. Nathan was the last to testify. Martinez had coached him to stay calm, to not let his anger show. But when he looked at Marcus, all he could see was Sarah's killer. Tell us about your wife, Martinez said gently. Nathan talked about Sarah the teacher, the mother, the woman who believed in justice and doing right. He talked about their life together, their plans, their dreams that had been cut short. He talked about explaining to a 5-year-old girl why mommy wasn't coming home. And when did you learn the truth about her death? When Vivian Sterling told me, after I pulled her from a shallow grave where Marcus Hale's men had buried her alive. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination, her smile sharp as a blade. Mr. Cole, isn't it true you've been unstable since your wife's death? Haven't you been in therapy for complicated grief? Yes, I've been in therapy. My wife died. I was grieving. And isn't it possible that in your grief, you were susceptible to Ms. Sterling's manipulation, that she used your pain to turn you against her business rival? Nathan looked at her steadily. The only manipulation here was Marcus Hale manipulating my wife's car to crash. Everything else is just truth finally coming to light. You threatened Mr. Hale with a gun, didn't you? I defended myself when his hired killers came after my daughter and me. You claim these were hired killers, but where are they? Where's the proof? One of them was shot by Ms. Sterling in self-defense. He left blood at the scene. Your client knows exactly who he is and where he went. The attorney tried several more angles, but Nathan remained calm, thinking of Sarah, of Lily, of justice. During a recess, Nathan found himself face-to-face with Marcus in the hallway. The bailiffs were close, but not close enough to hear Marcus's whispered words. This isn't over. Even if I go to prison, I have reach. You'll never be safe. Your daughter will never be safe. Nathan looked at him with pity. You still don't get it. We already aren't safe, haven't been since Sarah discovered your crimes. The only way we'll ever be safe is with you behind bars. And Marcus? Your reach isn't as long as you think. Your empire is crumbling. Your son turned against you. You've already lost. Marcus's face purpled with rage, but before he could respond, the bailiffs moved in, separating them. The trial continued for 3 more days. More witnesses, more evidence, more attempts by the defense to muddy the waters. But the tide had turned. The jury could see the truth through the smoke screen. On the final day, both sides made their closing arguments. The defense painted a picture of a successful businessman being railroaded by jealous competitors and delusional grieving family members. But the prosecution painted a different picture. A man so consumed by greed and power that he'd murdered anyone who stood in his way, including an innocent teacher whose only crime was trying to do the right thing. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. 6 hours that felt like 6 years to Nathan. He sat with Lily and Vivian in a small room, waiting. Lily worked on her homework, occasionally looking up to ask if the bad man was going to jail. Nathan could only say he hoped so. When the jury returned, their faces were grim but resolved. The foreman stood, a middle-aged man with kind eyes who looked directly at Nathan as he spoke. On the count of murder in the first degree of Sarah Cole, we find the defendant, Marcus Hale, guilty. The courtroom erupted. Marcus shot to his feet, screaming that it was a mistake, that they'd all pay. His lawyers tried to calm him, already talking about appeals. David Hale put his head in his hands and wept. Vivian grabbed Nathan's hand, squeezing tight, and Lily, sweet, brave Lily, said clearly, "Mommy won." The judge banged her gavel for order. The jury continued, finding Marcus guilty on all counts: murder, conspiracy, money laundering, racketeering. By the time they were done, he was facing multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. As the bailiffs led Marcus away, he turned one last time to look at Nathan. The hatred in his eyes was pure and poisonous. But Nathan didn't flinch. He'd faced down worse in Afghanistan, and he'd face down anything to protect his daughter and honor his wife's memory. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was overwhelming. But Nathan had prepared a statement, something he needed to say. My wife, Sarah Cole, was a teacher. She believed in truth, in justice, in doing the right thing even when it was dangerous. She died because she tried to stop a criminal enterprise. Today, justice was served. But I want to be clear, this isn't a victory. Sarah is still gone. Other victims of Marcus Hale are still gone. This is just accountability, finally, for crimes that should never have happened. He looked directly at the cameras. If you're watching this and you know something wrong is happening, speak up. Be brave like Sarah was brave, because silence in the face of evil is complicity. And if you're someone who thinks you're above the law, who thinks money and power make you untouchable, remember Marcus Hale. Remember that justice may be slow, but it comes for everyone eventually. A reporter shouted a question about his plans. Nathan pulled Lily closer and found Vivian in the crowd, motioning for her to join them. We're going to go home, he said simply. We're going to try to heal. And we're going to live lives that would make Sarah proud. As they walked away from the courthouse, Lily between them, each holding one of her hands, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, that would take time, but possibility. The possibility of a future without the shadow of Sarah's killer walking free. The possibility of peace. That night, in Nathan's modest home, they had a quiet dinner. Vivian had insisted on cooking, producing a surprisingly good lasagna. I've been practicing, she admitted. Figured I should learn at least one dish properly. As they ate, Lily asked, Miss Vivian, are you going to stay with us? Vivian looked at Nathan, who nodded slightly. They discussed it earlier. Vivian had nowhere else to go. Her assets were still frozen pending the investigation's conclusion, and she had death threats from Marcus's remaining loyalists. For a while, if that's okay with you, Vivian said. Lily considered this seriously. You can have the guest room. It's not as nice as your house probably was, but Daddy fixed it up real good. He's good at fixing things. Yes, Vivian said softly, looking at Nathan. He is. Later, after Lily was in bed, Nathan and Vivian sat on the porch, watching the stars. The same stars Sarah used to wish on. The same ones that had witnessed so much pain and now perhaps the beginning of healing. What will you do now? Nathan asked. When you get your assets back? Dismantle everything tainted by Marcus's money. Rebuild clean. Maybe start a foundation in Sarah's name supporting teachers who report wrongdoing. She paused. If that's okay with you. Sarah would have loved that. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Vivian said, David wants to meet with me to discuss taking over the legitimate parts of his father's business, turning them into something good. Will you help him? I think so. He's a good kid who had a monster for a father. He deserves a chance to be better. Nathan thought about second chances, about redemption, about the strange paths life could take. A week ago, he'd been a grieving widower who thought his wife died in an accident. Now he was, what? A man who'd helped take down a killer? A single father who'd honored his wife's memory? A person learning that justice, while not bringing back the dead, could still matter. Nathan, Vivian said suddenly, I need to tell you something about Sarah. He tensed. What about her? The day she was supposed to meet with me, before the accident, she called me. Left a voicemail I've never told anyone about. Vivian pulled out her phone, scrolling to find something. "I've kept it all this time. I think you should hear it." She played the message, and Sarah's voice filled the night air. "Miss Sterling, it's Sarah Cole. I'm on my way to meet you, but I wanted to say something first. I know what I've found is going to cause problems for you, maybe destroy everything you've built, but I believe you're a good person who got caught up in something bad. I believe you'll do the right thing. And I wanted you to know that my husband, Nathan, he's the strongest, bravest man I know. If something happens to me, find him. Tell him the truth. He'll know what to do. He always does." The message ended. Nathan realized he was crying, really crying, for the first time since Sarah's funeral. Vivian moved closer, not touching him, just being present as he grieved. "She knew," Nathan said through his tears. "She knew something might happen, and she made sure someone would tell me the truth." "She loved you very much," Vivian said softly. "Even facing danger, she was thinking of you." Nathan wiped his eyes, looking up at the stars again. "Thank you for keeping that, for finding me, for everything. Thank you for believing me, for fighting beside me, for being the man Sarah knew you were." A shooting star streaked across the sky, and Nathan made a wish. Not for Sarah to come back, he'd learned that some things couldn't be undone, but for strength to raise Lily right, for wisdom to know what Sarah would want, for courage to face whatever came next. Inside, he heard Lily call out in her sleep, probably a nightmare. He stood to go to her, then paused. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," he told Vivian. "This house has had too much sadness. Maybe it's time for something different." Vivian smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "I'd like that. I'd like to be part of something good for a change." As Nathan went inside to comfort his daughter, he thought about the strange turns life could take, how tragedy could lead to justice, how enemies could become allies, how broken people could help each other heal. Sarah was gone, would always be gone. But her legacy lived on, in the justice they'd won, in the lives saved by stopping Marcus, in the future Lily would have. And maybe, just maybe, in the unexpected friendship between a grieving carpenter and a millionaire seeking redemption. It wasn't the life Nathan had planned, but then again, life rarely went according to plan. The important thing was to keep going, keep fighting, keep honoring the memory of those lost by living with purpose and courage. The sound of Lily's peaceful breathing greeted him as he entered her room. She'd already fallen back asleep. The nightmare passed. Nathan adjusted her blanket, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Mommy's watching over you, baby. And so am I. Always." Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Marcus's lawyers would appeal. His remaining allies might seek revenge, and the work of rebuilding their lives would continue. But tonight, in this small house in Denver, a small family extended by circumstance and bound by justice finally found something approaching peace. The war was won. Now it was time to win the peace. The weeks following Marcus Hale's conviction should have been peaceful, but peace was a luxury Nathan couldn't afford. The first sign of trouble came exactly 1 month after the trial, when Lily's school called to say someone had tried to pick her up, claiming to be her uncle. Nathan arrived at the school in record time, finding Lily safe in the principal's office, coloring quietly while 2 police officers took statements. The man who'd tried to take her had fled when challenged for identification, but the security cameras had captured everything. Nathan recognized him immediately, one of Marcus's former security team. "We're increasing patrols around the school," Officer Rodriguez assured him, but Nathan knew that wouldn't be enough. Marcus might be in prison, but his reach extended far beyond bars. That evening, Vivian sat at the kitchen table surrounded by legal documents, her laptop open to news articles about Marcus's empire crumbling. Several of his associates had been arrested, but others had vanished, taking millions in assets with them. "They're regrouping," she said without looking up when Nathan entered with Lily. "Marcus's loyalists. They blame us for everything, the arrests, the frozen assets, the destroyed reputations." "Let them blame us," Nathan said, though his jaw was tight with worry, "as long as they leave Lily out of it." But they wouldn't, and everyone knew it. Lily was the pressure point, the vulnerability that could bring both Nathan and Vivian to their knees. That night, after Lily was asleep, they made a decision that would change everything. "David Hale called again," Vivian said. "He's offering us his family's estate in Aspen. completely off the grid, state-of-the-art security. He says we can stay as long as we need. Nathan's first instinct was to refuse. Taking charity from Marcus Hale's son felt wrong, twisted. But then he thought about the man who'd tried to take Lily from school, about the threatening letters that arrived daily, about the shadow of fear that had settled over their lives. "Can we trust him?" Nathan asked. "I think so. He testified against his own father. That takes a particular kind of courage or desperation." Vivian closed her laptop. "Besides, he's as much a target as we are. Marcus's people see him as the ultimate traitor." 3 days later, they were on the road to Aspen, Nathan's truck following David's bulletproof SUV through winding mountain passes. Lily sat between Nathan and Vivian, reading a book about horses, occasionally looking up to ask questions about the mountains. The estate was more fortress than home. 10-foot walls, electronic gates, cameras covering every angle. But inside those walls was something unexpected: warmth. David had transformed his father's cold monument to wealth into something living. There were gardens, a playground, even a small stable with 3 gentle horses. "I thought Lily might like them," David said awkwardly, when the little girl squealed with delight at seeing the animals. "They were my mother's. The only good things in this place." Nathan studied Marcus's son, seeing the weight he carried. At 25, David looked older, worn down by the burden of his father's crimes and his own role in exposing them. There was something broken in him that Nathan recognized, the look of someone who'd lost their foundation and was trying to build something new from rubble. "Thank you," Nathan said simply. "For this, for testifying, for everything." David's smile was bitter. "Don't thank me. I spent 25 years blind to what my father was. If I'd opened my eyes sooner, maybe your wife would still be alive." "You were a kid," Vivian said gently. "Children aren't responsible for their parents' crimes." "Aren't they?" David walked to the window, looking out at the mountains. "I benefited from those crimes. My education, my opportunities, my entire life was built on blood money. How do I atone for that?" It was a question without an easy answer. They were all grappling with guilt in different ways. David for his ignorance, Vivian for not seeing the corruption sooner, Nathan for not protecting Sarah. Even little Lily carried a burden, the weight of being the girl whose mommy's death had exposed a criminal empire. That first night in the estate, Nathan couldn't sleep. He wandered the halls, finding himself in what had clearly been Marcus's study. The walls were lined with photos, Marcus with politicians, celebrities, business leaders. In every photo, he wore the same cold smile, the expression of a man who saw people as tools or obstacles, nothing more. "Couldn't sleep either." David's voice came from the doorway. Nathan turned to find the younger man holding 2 glasses and a bottle of what was probably very expensive scotch. They sat in leather chairs that had probably hosted criminal conspiracies, drinking whiskey that might have been bought with drug money, 2 men bound by their connection to Marcus Hale's evil. "Tell me about your mother," Nathan said eventually. David's face softened. "She was kind. Too kind for my father, that's for sure. She died when I was 15, cancer. But I think it was really a broken heart. She knew what he was, even if she never said it out loud." "Is that why you testified?" "For her?" "Partly. But mostly because I looked in the mirror one day and saw my father's eyes looking back. Same coldness, same calculation. I realized I was becoming him, and it terrified me." David took a long sip. "Your wife saved me, in a way. Her death, the investigation, it forced me to see the truth." They sat in silence for a while. 2 men from different worlds united by tragedy. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the mountain landscape in pristine white, hiding the darkness beneath. The next morning brought news that shattered their fragile peace. Christina Martinez called with a warning. Marcus had been attacked in prison. He'd survived, but barely, and was now in protective custody. His attacker had been identified as the brother of one of Marcus's victims, a man whose sister had died in a suspicious accident years ago. "This changes things," Martinez said over speakerphone. "Marcus is claiming the attack was orchestrated by you and Vivian, that you're running a conspiracy to kill him. His lawyers are filing motions, claiming he's not safe in prison." That's ridiculous, Vivian protested. We had nothing to do with it. I know that, you know that, but a judge might see doubt. They're pushing for house arrest with monitoring. If they succeed, he'll be free, Nathan finished, feeling sick. After everything, he'll be free. Martinez's silence was answer enough. The legal system that had finally delivered justice was now being manipulated to undo it. Money and influence were working their dark magic again. Nathan found Lily in the stable, brushing one of the horses with David's help. She looked so happy, so normal, that it broke his heart to think of her world being shattered again. "Daddy!" she called out. "David's teaching me to ride. He says I'm a natural." "She really is," David confirmed, smiling genuinely for the first time since they'd arrived. "She has good instincts, knows how to communicate with the horse." Nathan watched them together, the broken son of a monster and the daughter of his victim, finding unexpected connection. It should have been wrong, twisted, but instead it felt like something Sarah would have understood, the possibility of redemption, of good growing from evil's ashes. That afternoon, Vivian made a decision that would change the course of everything. She called a press conference, standing before cameras at the estate's gates, snow falling around her like a scene from a movie. "Marcus Hale wants you to believe he's a victim," she said, her voice strong and clear. "He wants you to forget that he murdered Sarah Cole and others. He wants his money and influence to buy him freedom. But I have something his money can't buy. The truth." She held up a flash drive. "This contains every piece of evidence against Marcus Hale and his associates. Financial records, recordings, documents. I'm releasing it all publicly right now. Let the world see what kind of man is claiming to be a victim." Within hours, the information was everywhere. News outlets, social media, legal blogs, everyone was dissecting the evidence. The court of public opinion, which Marcus had tried to manipulate, turned decisively against him. The judge handling his motion for house arrest received thousands of letters from citizens demanding Marcus remain in prison. But Vivian's bold move had consequences. That night, as they sat down to dinner, the estate's security system triggered. Armed men were at the gates, demanding entry. Nathan recognized some of them, Marcus's old security team, the ones who'd escaped prosecution. "Take Lily to the safe room," Nathan told Vivian, his military training kicking in. "Lock yourselves in and call Martinez." "What about you?" "David and I will handle this." David was already at the security console, his face pale but determined. "There are 8 of them," he said. "They're not trying to break in yet, just intimidating us." Nathan studied the monitors. The men were professional, patient. They knew the estate's defenses, knew how long it would take police to arrive in this remote location. This was psychological warfare, designed to break them before the real attack came. "Your father trained them well," Nathan observed. "He did. But he also trained me." David's fingers flew across the keyboard, and suddenly the men at the gate were illuminated by spotlights, their faces clearly visible to the estate's cameras. "Smile, gentlemen. You're being broadcast live to the Denver Police Department and the FBI." The men hesitated, clearly not expecting this. One of them, the leader Nathan recognized from the forest confrontation, stepped forward. "We just want to talk," he called out. "Man to man, about compensation for our lost employment." Nathan laughed bitterly. "You mean blood money for being Marcus's thugs? We were legitimate security personnel wrongfully terminated due to your conspiracy against Mr. Hale," the man replied, clearly reciting prepared words for legal protection. David activated the intercom. "Gentlemen, you're trespassing on private property. You have 30 seconds to leave before I release the guard dogs." "You don't have guard dogs," the leader scoffed. David smiled coldly, an expression eerily reminiscent of his father. "Don't I?" The sound that erupted from the estate's speakers was terrifying, snarling, barking, the sound of large, vicious dogs eager for blood. Nathan realized David was playing a recording, but it was incredibly realistic. The men at the gate stepped back instinctively. 20 seconds, David announced calmly. The men retreated, but their leader turned back one last time. "This isn't over. We know where you are now. We know the little girl's here. Consider this a warning." After they left, Nathan found David still at the console, his hands shaking. "They'll be back," the younger man said. With more men, better equipment. Then we'll be ready, Nathan replied, but privately wondered how long they could hold out in this fortress, under siege by Marcus's loyalists. Vivian emerged from the safe room with Lily, who was trying to be brave but clearly frightened. Were those bad men? She asked Nathan. Yes, baby, but they're gone now. Because David scared them away with the dog sounds? Lily asked, and David looked surprised. You knew they were fake. Lily nodded solemnly. Real dogs don't sound that perfect, but it was really smart. Mommy always said the smart person wins, not the strong person. That night, Nathan made a decision. Running and hiding wasn't working. They needed to go on the offensive, to take the fight to their enemies instead of waiting to be attacked. I know someone, he told Vivian and David. From my army days. Jake Morrison. You met him, Vivian. He has connections, people who specialize in protection, in making problems disappear legally. Mercenaries? David asked. Security consultants, Nathan corrected. Former military, all legal, all above board. If Marcus's people want to play soldier, we'll show them what real soldiers look like. The call to Jake was brief. I need help, brother. When and where? Aspen. Soon as possible. Bring the team. On our way. Within 24 hours, the estate had transformed into something from a military thriller. Jake arrived with 6 men, all former special forces, all carrying themselves with the quiet confidence of people who'd faced real danger and survived. Perimeter secured, Jake reported to Nathan. We've got motion sensors, cameras, and rotating patrols. Anyone tries to come uninvited, we'll know. But it wasn't an attack that came next. It was something worse. Cristina Martinez called with devastating news. A judge, one they'd thought was clean, had ruled in Marcus's favor. House arrest had been granted. Marcus would be released to his mansion in Denver, with only an ankle monitor to contain him. How? Vivian demanded. After everything, how could this happen? The prison attack changed everything, Martinez explained, frustration clear in her voice. His lawyers successfully argued that the state couldn't protect him in prison, that his constitutional rights were being violated. And Judge Reynolds, well, it turns out his grandson just got a full scholarship to Yale. Anonymous benefactor. Marcus bought him, Nathan said flatly. We can't prove that. But yes, probably. They watched the news in horror as Marcus walked out of prison, surrounded by lawyers and bodyguards, wearing an expensive suit and his trademark cold smile. He spoke to the cameras, playing the victim perfectly. I've been vindicated, he declared. This witch hunt orchestrated by my competitors and a delusional widower has failed. Justice has prevailed. Nathan wanted to punch the television. Lily, watching from the doorway, asked quietly, Does this mean the bad man wins? Before anyone could answer, Nathan's phone rang. The number was blocked, but somehow he knew who it was. Hello, Nathan. Marcus's voice was smooth, confident. I wanted to thank you personally. Prison was educational, but I prefer my own bed. How did you get this number? Oh, Nathan, I know everything about you, where you are, who's protecting you, where your daughter goes to hide when she's scared. Did you really think a few soldiers and my traitor son could keep you safe? If you come near my daughter, I won't have to. You see, I've learned something important. Direct action is messy, leaves evidence, but there are so many other ways to destroy a life. Your construction business, for instance. Such a shame about those tax irregularities the IRS is about to discover. There are no irregularities. There are now. Or Vivian's remaining assets. Did you know international banking laws are so complex? One wrong form and everything can be frozen indefinitely. And David, my poor confused son. Mental illness runs in families, doesn't it? I'm sure a judge would be very concerned about his stability, might even require institutional evaluation. The threats were clear. Marcus would destroy them financially, legally, systematically, without ever directly touching them. You're forgetting something, Nathan said. We have evidence. The whole world knows what you are. The world has a short memory, Nathan. In 6 months, no one will remember Sarah Cole's name. But I'll remember yours. Every day for the rest of your life, you'll wonder when the next blow will fall. Your daughter will grow up looking over her shoulder, never feeling safe. That's my gift to you, eternal fear. The line went dead. Nathan looked at the others, seeing his own rage and frustration reflected in their faces. They'd won the battle, but were losing the war. "We need a new plan," Jake said quietly. "This isn't about force anymore. It's about leverage." "What leverage do we have?" Vivian asked desperately. "He has judges, politicians, infinite money." David stood suddenly, his face set with determination. "He doesn't have everything. There's something he wants more than revenge, more than money, more than power." "What?" Nathan asked. "Legacy. He wants the Hale name to mean something beyond crime. It's why he built hospitals, funded schools. It's his weakness." David pulled out his laptop. "I own 40% of Hale Industries. Mother left me her shares. I've never touched them, but they're mine." "So?" Vivian asked. "So I'm going to destroy it. Publicly dismantle every company, liquidate every asset, donate every penny to victims of violence. I'm going to erase the Hale name from history." Nathan saw it immediately. The genius of the plan. Marcus had endured prison, but watching his legacy crumble, that would break him. "He'll stop you," Vivian warned. "Legal challenges, hostile takeovers. Let him try. While he's fighting to save his empire, he won't have time to hurt you." David looked at Nathan. "This is my fight now. My father destroyed your family. Let me save it." It was a sacrifice Nathan couldn't accept. "David, you don't owe us—" "Yes, I do. Every privilege I've had, every opportunity came from blood money, from your wife's blood. This is my chance for redemption." That night, as snow fell heavily on the estate, they planned David's campaign. He would announce his intentions publicly, making it impossible for Marcus to stop him quietly. Every move would be documented, broadcast, turned into a weapon against Marcus's pride. "You know this will destroy you too," Nathan told David quietly. "The Hale name will be toxic. You'll lose everything." David smiled sadly. "I lost everything the day I learned what my father really was. This is just making it official." The next morning, David stood before cameras at the estate, the mountains behind him like witnesses to his declaration of war. "My name is David Hale," he began, his voice steady. "My father is Marcus Hale, convicted murderer, money launderer, and corrupter of justice. Today, I announce my intention to liquidate the entirety of Hale Industries and donate all proceeds to a new foundation, the Sarah Cole Foundation for Justice." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Marcus's lawyers filed injunctions within hours. Financial news networks ran continuous coverage, and Marcus himself called, but not Nathan's phone, David's. They put it on speaker, all of them listening as Marcus's controlled facade finally cracked. "You ungrateful little bastard," he snarled. "I gave you everything." "You gave me blood money," David replied calmly. "I'm giving it back. I'll destroy you. You'll have nothing, be nothing. I'd rather be nothing than be your son." The scream of rage that came through the phone was barely human. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was deadly quiet. "You're dead to me, all of you, and soon you'll be dead to everyone." The threat was clear, but something had changed. David's public declaration had shifted the narrative. Marcus wasn't a victim anymore. He was a father whose own son had rejected him, a criminal whose empire was being dismantled piece by piece. Support poured in from unexpected places. Other victims of Marcus's crimes came forward. Business partners who'd been intimidated into silence found courage. The FBI reopened investigations that had been mysteriously closed. But Marcus wasn't finished. 3 days after David's announcement, disaster struck in a way none of them had anticipated. Nathan woke to find Lily's bed empty. The panic that followed was indescribable. Jake's men searched every inch of the estate. The security footage showed nothing. One moment Lily was in her bed, the next she was gone. It was as if she'd vanished into thin air. Then they found the note, tucked under her pillow in handwriting that wasn't hers. "The sins of the father pass to the child. Come alone, Nathan Cole, or she pays for your crimes." Midnight, the place where it all began. Nathan knew immediately what it meant. The woods where he'd found Vivian, where Sarah's murder had been avenged, where this all started. "It's a trap," Jake said immediately. "You can't go alone." "I don't have a choice." "We'll follow. Set up a perimeter. No! Nathan's voice was final. They have my daughter. I play by their rules. Vivian grabbed his arm. Nathan, think. This is what Marcus wants. You walking into certain death. Then I walk into certain death. I can't lose Lily. I won't. David stepped forward. It should be me. I'm the one who declared war. Let me trade myself for her. Nathan looked at the young man who'd already sacrificed so much. No. This is between Marcus and me. It always has been. As Nathan prepared to leave, strapping on body armor Jake insisted on, Vivian pulled him aside. Come back, she said simply. Both of you. Come back. I'll try. No. Her voice was fierce. Promise me. Sarah saved my life by sending you to that forest. I won't let her sacrifice be for nothing. Promise me you'll come back. Nathan looked at this woman who'd become family, who'd fought beside him for justice. I promise. The drive to the forest was the longest of Nathan's life. Every mile was a memory, teaching Lily to ride a bike, Sarah laughing at his bad jokes, family dinners that he'd taken for granted. If he died tonight, at least Lily would know he'd tried. That had to count for something. The forest was dark, moonlight barely penetrating the canopy. Nathan parked where he had that day that seemed like a lifetime ago, when he'd pulled Vivian from the earth. The trail was familiar now, each tree a landmark on the way to either salvation or doom. He found them in the same clearing. Lily was tied to a tree, tape over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. 3 men stood around her, the same ones from the estate's gates. And there, stepping out from the shadows like a nightmare made flesh, was Marcus Hale. He shouldn't have been there. The ankle monitor, the house arrest, none of it seemed to matter now. The monitor says I'm home in bed, Marcus said, reading Nathan's expression. Amazing what money can buy. Even FBI technology isn't immune to the right price. Let her go, Nathan said. This is between us. Is it? I think your daughter is very much part of this. The last piece of Sarah Cole, the final reminder of my one mistake. Mistake? You murdered her. My mistake was not killing you all at once, leaving loose ends, but I'm correcting that tonight. Marcus pulled out a gun, examining it casually. You know what the beautiful part is? You're already dead. My men grabbed you from the estate, killed you and your daughter, buried you where no one will ever find you. Meanwhile, I've been home all evening, hosting a charity dinner with 50 witnesses. Nathan's mind raced, looking for options. But the men were professionals, positioned perfectly. Any move he made would result in bullets, and Lily was directly in the line of fire. Before you die, Marcus continued, I want you to know something. Your wife begged. When she realized her brakes were gone, she called 911. We have the recording. She begged them to save her, not for herself, but for Lily, for you. She died crying your names. Rage flooded through Nathan, but he forced himself to stay still. One wrong move and Lily would pay the price. Nothing to say? Marcus taunted. The brave soldier, the vengeful husband, finally silent? I have something to say, Nathan replied quietly. Sarah forgave you. Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting that. What? In her video diary, the parts that weren't shown at trial. She said if something happened to her, she forgave whoever did it. She said holding on to hate would only poison the lives of those she loved. She chose forgiveness. You're lying. I'm not. She was better than all of us, better than she had any right to be, and you killed her for it. Nathan took a step forward. But I'm not Sarah. I don't forgive you, and I won't let you hurt my daughter. He moved then, not toward Marcus, but toward the man nearest to Lily. The gunfire was immediate and overwhelming. Nathan felt bullets tear into him, the body armor absorbing some, but not all. He crashed into the guard, bringing him down, rolling toward Lily. More gunfire, but from a different direction. Jake and his team erupted from the forest, despite Nathan's orders to stay away. They'd followed him, unwilling to let him face this alone. The clearing became a battlefield. Marcus was screaming orders, shooting wildly. His men were scattering, caught between Jake's team and their loyalty to their employer. Nathan reached Lily, covering her with his body as bullets flew overhead. He cut her bonds with his knife, pulled the tape from her mouth. Daddy, she sobbed, clinging to him. I was so scared. I know, baby. I've got you. He was bleeding, could feel it soaking through his shirt, but Lily was alive, and that was all that mattered. He pulled her behind the tree, shielding her as the gunfight raged. Then, suddenly, silence. Nathan peered around the tree. Marcus's men were down, dead or wounded. Jake's team had them secured, and Marcus himself was on his knees, David's gun pressed to his head. The son had appeared like a ghost, following despite being told to stay at the estate. "Hello, father," David said calmly. "David? You came to save me?" "I came to end this." David's finger was on the trigger, trembling with the weight of decision. "You won't shoot me," Marcus said, but uncertainty colored his voice. "You're weak, like your mother." "My mother was the strongest person I knew. She lived with you, loved you despite what you were. That takes a strength I'll never have." "Then you understand. Family is everything. We're blood, David." "We are," David agreed, "which is why I can't let you hurt anyone else." For a moment, Nathan thought David would pull the trigger. The clearing held its breath, waiting for the final violence. Then David lowered the gun. "But I won't become you. I won't take a life, even yours." He looked at Jake's team. "He's all yours." The FBI arrived minutes later, along with ambulances and what seemed like half of Colorado's law enforcement. Marcus was arrested again, this time for kidnapping, attempted murder, and violating house arrest. The evidence was overwhelming. Video footage from body cameras Jake's team wore, Nathan's injuries, Lily's testimony. As paramedics treated Nathan's wounds, none life-threatening thanks to the armor and luck, Christina Martinez arrived, looking harried but relieved. "Judge Reynolds has been arrested," she announced. The FBI traced the bribe for his grandson's scholarship directly to Marcus's accounts. "Marcus is finished. No judge in the country will grant him bail now." Nathan held Lily close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, proof that they'd survived. Vivian was there too, having ignored orders to stay at the estate, tears streaming down her face as she saw them both alive. "You promised," she said to Nathan. "You promised you'd come back." "I keep my promises," Nathan replied, though his voice was weak from blood loss. David stood apart, staring at where his father had knelt. The gun was still in his hand, trembling. "You did the right thing," Nathan called to him. "Did I? He'll never stop, even from prison. He'll always be out there, plotting, planning." "Maybe. But you didn't become him. That matters." David dropped the gun and walked over to them, this strange family forged by tragedy. "What now?" he asked. "Now we heal," Vivian said. "We build something better from the ashes." "Together?" Lily asked, looking up at all of them. "Together," Nathan confirmed. 6 months had passed since that night in the forest, and the world had shifted on its axis. Marcus Hale sat in federal maximum security prison, serving consecutive life sentences that ensured he'd never breathe free air again. But even from behind bars, his presence lingered like a shadow that wouldn't quite fade. Nathan stood in the kitchen of their new home, not the estate in Aspen, which David had sold along with everything else bearing the Hale name, but a modest farmhouse outside Denver that they'd purchased together. The morning sun streamed through windows that Lily had insisted on decorating with rainbow catchers, casting prisms of light across the worn wooden floor. "Daddy, Miss Vivian says breakfast is ready," Lily called from the dining room, her voice bright with the resilience only children seemed to possess. She'd had nightmares for months after the kidnapping, but therapy and time were working their quiet magic. Vivian appeared in the doorway, flour dusting her cheek from her latest attempt at pancakes. She'd gotten better at cooking, though Sarah's ghost still presided over the kitchen in small ways, her handwritten recipes tucked in a drawer, her favorite coffee mug that Nathan couldn't bring himself to pack away. "You know you don't have to keep making breakfast," Nathan said, accepting a cup of coffee from her. "I want to," Vivian replied simply. "It feels normal. We all need normal." Normal had become precious currency in their strange household. David lived in the converted barn, close enough for security but maintaining the independence he desperately needed as he rebuilt his identity separate from his father's legacy. Jake had stayed too, setting up a security consulting firm from the property's guest house, a guardian angel in tactical gear. But normal was about to be shattered again. The call came during breakfast, Christina Martinez's name lighting up Nathan's phone. They all tensed. Calls from the prosecutor were never casual check-ins. "Nathan, I need you all to come to my office immediately," she said without preamble. "There's been a development." "What kind of development?" Nathan asked, but the line was already dead. They drove in tense silence, Lily staying with Jake at his insistence. The federal building loomed before them like a monument to their shared trauma, the place where justice had been fought for and partially won. Martinez was waiting in her office, her usual composure cracked. Beside her stood a man Nathan didn't recognize, elderly, distinguished, with eyes that held depths of carefully managed fear. "This is Walter Brennan," Martinez said. "He was Marcus Hale's personal attorney for 30 years. He came to us last night with information that changes everything." Brennan cleared his throat, his hands trembling slightly as he opened a leather briefcase. "What I'm about to share will destroy what's left of my career, possibly land me in prison. But I can't stay silent anymore, not after what I've learned." He pulled out a thick folder, placing it on Martinez's desk like it might explode. "Marcus Hale didn't just kill Sarah Cole. There's a list, 23 names over 15 years. All murders made to look like accidents, suicides, or natural causes. Sarah was just the most recent." The room spun around Nathan. 23 people, 23 families destroyed, 23 Sarah Coles who'd never gotten justice. "Why now?" Vivian's voice was sharp. "Why come forward now?" Brennan's composure cracked. "Because Marcus tried to have me killed last week. Even from prison, even after everything, he's still giving orders. A man came to my home, told me I knew too much, that my services were no longer required. I barely escaped." "He's tying up loose ends," David said quietly. "It's what he does. What he's always done." Martinez opened the folder, scanning the contents with growing horror. These names: Judge Patricia Williams, the car accident 5 years ago. Journalist Mark Chen, the apartment fire. Construction foreman Luis Moreno, the fall from scaffolding. These were all murders? "Everyone," Brennan confirmed. "I have recordings, Marcus discussing the deaths, sometimes planning them. I thought I was protected by attorney-client privilege, but attempted murder voids that protection." Nathan found the name he was looking for, Sarah's name in neat handwriting, clinical notes beside it detailing the method, the cost, the man hired to cut her brake lines. Seeing it in black and white, reduced to a business transaction, made him want to vomit. "We need to contact all these families," Nathan said. "They deserve to know the truth." "It's bigger than that," Martinez said. "With this evidence, we can charge Marcus with 22 additional murders. He'll never manipulate his way out again." But Brennan wasn't finished. He pulled out another document, this one marked with red stamps labeled confidential. "There's more." Marcus has been running operations from prison. He has guards on his payroll, a whole network still functioning. And he's planning something he calls the reckoning. "What kind of reckoning?" David asked, though his face suggested he already knew. "Everyone who testified against him, everyone who helped convict him, you're all targets. He's put bounties on your heads, $50 million total, to be split among whoever completes the list." The silence that followed was suffocating. $50 million would motivate a lot of dangerous people. They weren't just targets anymore. They were the most hunted people in Colorado. "We can protect you," Martinez said, but even she didn't sound convinced. "Witness protection, new identities." "No," Nathan said firmly. "I'm not running anymore. Not from him." "Nathan, think about Lily." "I am thinking about her. What kind of life is it if we're always running, always looking over our shoulders? Sarah wouldn't want that for her daughter." David stood abruptly. "There's another way. Cut off the head of the snake." Everyone turned to look at him. His face was calm, resolved, frighteningly similar to his father's when Marcus made a decision. "What are you suggesting?" Martinez asked carefully. "I still have contacts in my father's organization. People who are loyal to the Hale name, not necessarily to Marcus himself. If I can turn them, convince them that following a man in prison is bad business." "You want to destroy his network from the inside," Vivian said, understanding immediately. "It's dangerous," Nathan protested. "These people are killers." "They're businessmen first," David corrected. And I'm offering them a better deal: legitimacy, protection from prosecution in exchange for information. Martinez, could you make that happen? The prosecutor considered. With the Attorney General's approval, possibly. But David, you'd be putting yourself directly in harm's way. I've been in harm's way since the day I was born Marcus Hale's son. At least now I can choose which side I'm on. The plan they hatched over the next 3 hours was audacious, dangerous, and their only real chance at ending Marcus's reach forever. David would arrange a meeting with Marcus's top lieutenants, wearing a wire, offering them a deal they couldn't refuse. The FBI would be listening, ready to move at the first sign of danger. But Marcus was too smart to be caught easily. The next morning, as David prepared for the meeting, Nathan received a package at the farmhouse. Inside was a USB drive and a note in Marcus's handwriting. Watch this with your daughter. Every instinct screamed trap, but Nathan couldn't ignore it. He watched it first alone, and what he saw made his blood turn to ice. It was Sarah. Video footage from the day she died, taken from a hidden camera in her car. Marcus had recorded her final moments, kept it as a trophy. Sarah's face filled the screen, confused at first as the brakes failed, then terrified as she realized what was happening. Her last words, caught on the recording, were for Nathan and Lily. "Tell them I love them," she gasped as the car spun toward the ravine. "Tell them to be brave." Nathan broke completely, sobbing in a way he hadn't even at her funeral. This was torture refined to an art, Marcus's way of destroying him without laying a finger on him. But there was more on the drive. Plans, detailed plans for the reckoning. Not just bounties, but specific methods. Lily would be taken again, sold to traffickers. Vivian would die in a fire that consumed her new foundation's offices. David would be found dead of an apparent overdose, his reputation destroyed with planted evidence of drug abuse. And Nathan would watch it all happen before being killed himself, slowly, over days. The cruelty was breathtaking in its completeness. Marcus had thought of everything, planned for every contingency. Except one. Nathan called Martinez immediately. "We need to move now, today. The meeting with the lieutenants isn't until—" "Forget the meeting. I know where Marcus's real power is." The drive had contained something Marcus hadn't intended to share. Metadata showing where it had been created. Not in the prison, but in a warehouse on the outskirts of Denver. Marcus's base of operations, hidden in plain sight. The raid that followed was like something from a movie. FBI SWAT teams surrounded the warehouse while Nathan, Vivian, and David watched from a mobile command unit. Martinez had tried to keep them away, but they'd insisted. This was their fight to finish. Inside the warehouse, agents found everything: weapons, drugs, financial records, and most importantly, the communication hub Marcus had been using to run his empire from prison. Encrypted computers, satellite phones, even a direct link to his cell. The guards who'd been facilitating it were arrested on the spot. But the real victory came from an unexpected source. Among those arrested was Thomas Brennan, Walter's son, who'd been secretly working for Marcus while his father prepared to testify. The betrayal was complete. Even blood family had been turned against each other. Thomas broke immediately when confronted with his father's evidence, spilling everything in a desperate attempt to avoid life in prison. He revealed the locations of safe houses, names of corrupt officials, account numbers for hidden funds. The empire Marcus had built over decades crumbled in a single afternoon. That evening, they sat in Martinez's office watching the news coverage. Marcus's entire network was being rounded up across 3 states. Hundreds of arrests, millions in assets seized, decades of corruption exposed. It was the largest organized crime takedown in Colorado history. "It's over," Martinez said, exhausted but triumphant. He has nothing left. No money, no allies, no power. But Nathan knew better. Men like Marcus Hale didn't simply accept defeat. The attack came 3 days later, not from hired guns but from Marcus himself. He'd escaped during a prison transfer, the one vulnerability in an otherwise perfect takedown. The guards transporting him were found dead, and Marcus Hale had vanished like smoke. The manhunt was immediate and massive. Every law enforcement agency in the country was looking for him. His face was on every news channel, every social media feed. But Marcus had planned this too, one final contingency for if everything else failed. He didn't run. He came for them. Nathan woke to find Marcus standing in Lily's room, a gun pointed at his sleeping daughter. The monster had come home to finish what he'd started. "Don't scream," Marcus said quietly. "Don't move. We're going to have a conversation, and then I'm going to kill you all. But first, I want you to understand something." Nathan's hand inched toward the nightstand where he kept a gun, but Marcus noticed. "I removed all your weapons while you slept. Jake's unconscious, not dead, before you ask. I'm not completely without mercy. What do you want?" Nathan kept his voice low, not wanting to wake Lily. If she was going to die, better she never saw it coming. "I want you to know you were right," Marcus said, and the admission seemed to physically pain him. "Sarah Cole was special. In another life, I might have admired her courage, but this isn't another life. This is the one where she discovered my secrets and had to die for it." "She forgave you," Nathan said, remembering his words from the forest. "Even knowing what you were, she chose forgiveness." "Then she was a fool," Marcus spat. "Forgiveness is weakness. Mercy is weakness. Your wife's weakness killed her." "No," a voice came from the doorway. "Your weakness killed her." David stood there, his father's gun in his hand, the same one he'd held to Marcus's head months ago. This time, his hand was steady. "Hello, son," Marcus said, not turning from Lily. "Come to watch? Or to try playing hero again? I came to end this. To end you. You couldn't before. You won't now. It's not in your nature." "You're right," David admitted. "I couldn't kill my father. But you're not my father anymore. My father was the man who taught me to ride a bike, who read me stories, who I thought was building something good in the world. That man never existed. You're just the monster wearing his face." Marcus finally turned, and Nathan moved, throwing himself toward Lily's bed. The gunshot was deafening in the small room. Lily woke screaming as Nathan covered her with his body, waiting for more shots, for pain, for death. But there was only one shot. When Nathan looked up, Marcus was on the ground, blood spreading from a wound in his chest. David stood over him, the gun shaking in his hands now that the moment had passed. Marcus looked up at his son, something like pride flickering in his dying eyes. "There's my boy," he wheezed. "There's the Hale in you." "No," David said quietly. "This isn't Hale. This is Cole. This is Sterling. This is all the families you destroyed getting their justice." Marcus tried to speak again, but the words were lost in blood. His eyes found Nathan's, and for just a moment the mask slipped completely. Nathan saw not a monster but a man, afraid and alone, dying on a stranger's floor far from anything he'd built or valued. Then Marcus Hale was gone, and the monster died with him. The aftermath was a blur of police, paramedics, investigators. David was arrested but immediately released. Clear self-defense, they said. Marcus had broken into the house, threatened a child, been shot protecting innocent life. No charges would be filed. But David filed charges against himself in a different court, the court of his own conscience. He disappeared that night, leaving only a note. "I need to find out who I am when I'm not defined by him. Take care of each other. Maybe someday I'll be whole enough to return." Nathan wanted to go after him, but Vivian stopped him. "He needs this. Needs to discover if there's a David separate from the Hales. We have to let him go." They held a memorial service, not for Marcus, but for his victims. 23 photos on 23 easels, Sarah's in the center. Families came from across the state. Some Nathan had never met, all bound by shared loss and newfound truth. Luis Moreno's widow spoke, tears streaming down her face. "For 10 years, I blamed myself. Thought if I hadn't asked him to work overtime, he'd have been home safe. Now I know it wasn't my fault. It wasn't an accident. That knowledge doesn't bring him back, but it brings peace." Patricia Williams' daughter held her infant son, named after the grandmother he'd never meet. "My mother died fighting corruption. She was a hero. My son will know that." Mark Chen's partner stood silent for a long moment before simply saying, "The truth matters. Even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, the truth matters." When it was Nathan's turn to speak, Lily stood with him, her small hand in his. "Sarah Cole was a teacher," Nathan began, his voice strong despite his tears. "She taught 3rd grade, but her real lesson was bigger than any classroom. She taught us that ordinary people can stand up to evil, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite it, that love is stronger than hate, truth stronger than lies, justice stronger than power. Lily stepped forward, her voice clear and sweet. My mommy was brave. She saved people by being brave, and we're brave too because she showed us how. The room was silent, except for quiet sobs. Then applause, starting slowly but building to thunder. Not for performance, but for truth, for survival, for the long journey from darkness to something like light. Afterward, as people mingled and shared stories, Walter Brennan approached Nathan. The old lawyer looked decades older than he had weeks ago, hollowed out by guilt and his son's betrayal. I'm going to prison, he said simply. I've pled guilty to conspiracy, to obstruction of justice. It's not enough, not nearly enough, but it's what I can do. Why tell me? Nathan asked. Because I need you to know that not everyone who worked with Marcus was evil. Some of us were just weak, just afraid. Your wife, Sarah, she was the opposite of everything I became. I wanted you to know that her example, even in death, changed me, made me finally do the right thing. Nathan didn't offer forgiveness. That wasn't his to give. But he nodded, acknowledging the confession, the attempt at redemption. As the sun set over Denver, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, Nathan stood outside the community center with Vivian and Lily. Jake had recovered from the assault, insisted on checking the perimeter even here, even now. Some habits died hard. What happens now? Vivian asked, the question they'd all been avoiding. Now we live, Nathan said, pulling Lily closer. We build something good from all this pain. The Sarah Cole Foundation, your legitimate business empire, Lily's future, we build it all. Together? Vivian asked, and there was something more in the question, a possibility they'd both been circling for months. Nathan thought about Sarah, about what she'd want for him, for Lily. She'd want them to be happy, to find love again, to not let grief become a prison. Together, he confirmed, taking Vivian's hand. Lily looked up at them both, wise beyond her years. Mommy would like this, she said simply. She'd like us being a family. And they were, Nathan realized. Not the family any of them had planned, but the one forged in fire and loss and courage. David would return someday, when he'd found himself. Jake would always be their guardian angel, and Sarah would always be with them, in the justice they'd won, in the lives they'd saved, in the love that had grown from tragedy. 6 months later, Nathan stood in a courtroom one final time, watching as Walter Brennan was sentenced to 5 years in minimum security, a mercy given his cooperation. Thomas Brennan got 20 years, no mercy for the son who'd betrayed his father and served a monster. The Hale Empire was completely dismantled, its assets distributed to victims' families. The Sarah Cole Foundation had helped pass 3 new laws protecting whistleblowers and had funded legal aid for dozens of families fighting corporate corruption. David sent postcards occasionally, from Tibet, from Somalia, from a refugee camp in Jordan. He was finding himself in service to others, healing his soul by healing the world. His latest card had simply said, "Learning to be good. Thank you for showing me it was possible." That evening, Nathan tucked Lily into bed in their new home. One bought with clean money, built with their own hands. The nightmares had mostly stopped, replaced by dreams of horses and sunshine and her mother's smile. "Daddy," she said sleepily, "do you think Mommy knows we won?" Nathan kissed her forehead, thinking of Sarah's last words on that terrible recording. Tell them to be brave. "Yeah, baby," he said softly. "She knows, and she's proud of us. Because we were brave. Because we were brave." As he turned off the light, Lily added, "And Daddy? I think she's glad you're not sad anymore, that you have Miss Vivian, that we're happy." Nathan paused in the doorway, emotion thick in his throat. "I think so too, Princess." Downstairs, Vivian was working on plans for a new project, a school in Sarah's name where children could learn not just academics, but ethics, courage, the importance of standing up for what's right. Jake was at the kitchen table, teaching his team's newest recruit, a young woman who'd escaped from trafficking, how to read security reports. This was their life now. Not perfect, scarred by loss that would never fully heal, but good. They'd faced the worst humanity had to offer and somehow found the best in each other. Outside, the Colorado stars sparkled in the clear mountain air, each one a point of light in the darkness. Nathan thought of Sarah, of all Marcus's victims, and made a promise to those lights. We'll remember. We'll honor you by living well, by protecting others, by never letting evil win through our silence or fear. We'll be brave, always, because you showed us how. A shooting star streaked across the sky, and Nathan didn't make a wish. He didn't need to. They'd already gotten the only thing that mattered: justice, family, and the chance to build something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. The war was over. The peace, hard-won and precious, had finally begun. And in a house built on love and fortified by courage, a small family that had faced the darkness together now turned toward the light, ready for whatever came next. Marcus Hale was dead. Sarah Cole's legacy lived on, and in the end, that was the only victory that mattered.